Chapter 657. Remember in 1 second, 800 mail sign small/say net there was no pop-up window to read it for free. Xiao Wanru stopped talking, lowered her head, and clenched her fists in her long sleeves tightly. It turned out that this was the pagoda she saw in front of the palace gate. In her last life, she had gone to this pagoda secretly in the palace. She seemed to have seen someone on it. Her memories from her previous life were blurry, and she couldn't remember anything else. In her memory, this pagoda was very big, and it was the scene she saw at the bottom of the pagoda. So when she saw this pagoda just now, she didn't remember that this pagoda was floating and sinking in her memory. She couldn't remember what the pagoda was, as if it was at the edge of her memory, but she inexplicably felt that it was very important. She seemed to have forgotten something very important and couldn't remember it. She only vaguely felt that this pagoda was very important to her. If possible, she wanted to go to the pagoda to have a look. Did she lose some of her memory here in her last life? Slowly relaxing one hand, Xiaoqin stretched out his long sleeve and pressed on the space between his eyebrows. Most importantly, it felt like many things were being dug up from his memories. When those fragmented memories from his previous life were dug up from his sea of consciousness, they were always intermittent, but he felt like they were very important. The smell in the medicine bottle Yujia picked up from Dr. Chiu reminded her of Wen Shiqi. This matter had something to do with Wen Shiqi. In her last life, she had smelled this unique smell in Wen Shiqi's medicine, but even now, she didn't know what it was. In her last life, if Wang Yishu was fine, Dr. Chiu didn't need to be invited to Duke Xing's mansion, but he had something to do with Deputy Prime Minister Wen's mansion. Did Wen Shiqi's medicine come from Dr. Chiu? Dr. Chiu was not from the capital city and was specially invited to treat Wang Yishu. So, could it be possible that he was invited by Wen's mansion to treat Wen Shiqi in her last life? There seemed to be a thin thread connecting the two, but she just couldn't find out where it came from. Fifth sister, do you have a headache? Seeing Xiao Wanru reach out to rub her forehead, Xiao Yanru said with concern and thought in her heart, could it be that the medicine has taken effect? But according to Grandma, the medicine could not take effect so soon. A little. Xiao Wanru nodded, leaned against the wall of the carriage, and closed her eyes. Seeing her uncomfortable look, Xiao Yanru acted like a caring sister and stopped disturbing her. Of course, the stronger the medicine was, the better. She couldn't wait for Xiao Wanru to make a bigger scandal at that time. She had indeed prepared for the follow-up. With a trace of hatred in her eyes, and then carefully hid it in her eyes. She would not let Xiao Yanru again. The carriage stopped at the palace gate, and the 5 of them got off the carriage. After entering the palace gate, there were already 5 soft sedan chairs waiting there. The 5 of them got on the sedan chairs one after another. Yujia and Shay, they came in the soft sedan. The sisters got on the carriage in order. Xiao Yanru's soft bridge was the first, and Xiao Wanru's was the last. When they arrived at Shu Fei's palace, they alighted on the sedan chair. The 5 of them followed the palace maid who led the way to the Dan Palace. After waiting for a while, 2 more palace maids came out and led them up. Honored concubine Shu received them in the side hall. Seeing a row of 5 beautiful girls come in, honored concubine Shu's face was full of smiles, looking extremely happy. The 5 of them stepped forward to salute together and then sat down on the left and right sides respectively. They all lowered their heads respectfully. Only Xiao Yanru looked relaxed and pointed out her sister to honored consort Shu with a smile. In the past, she had come to the imperial palace to visit honored consort Shu, so she was naturally superior to others. Is this the 5th Miss Xiao? When Xiao Wanru was introduced, honored consort Shu said in surprise and reached out to wave at Xiao Wanru. Xiao Wanru stood up, walked slowly to honored consort Shu, and bowed respectfully again. Honored consort Shu took Xiao Wanru's hand and looked her up and down. Then she said with amazement on her face, Duke Xing's mansion is indeed full of beauties. I thought that the 1st Miss Xiao was the most beautiful woman in the mansion, but I didn't expect that the 5th Miss Xiao is even more stunning. She is really beautiful. Xiao Yanru's smiling face stiffened for a moment, and then eased up, with frost condensing at the bottom of her eyes. She had always been conceited about her appearance, and she thought that she was indeed the best. Now hearing honored consort Shu's words, she couldn't help feeling annoyed, and then a strong sense of jealousy and hatred welled up in her. Honored consort Shu, you flatter me. Big sister is the most beautiful woman in the capital city. Xiao Wanru lowered her head with a slight blush, as if she was really shy. Her complexion was originally white with a hint of pink. The simple and elegant snow-colored dress on her body fluttered like a fairy walking on the waves in a painting. Although the dress was not luxurious, it carried a water-like elegance, and this elegance, under close inspection, could be seen hidden within. It could indeed be called a beauty that could cause the downfall of a nation, exquisite to the point of being difficult to describe and paint. 3 years ago, Xiao Wanru was still immature. With this immaturity, she seemed to be inferior to Xiao Yanru in terms of appearance. Now, she was in her early 14 years old, and her immaturity had become pure, but she was not ordinary delicate, but extremely charming. Honored consort Shu was a little hesitant at this time. Such an outstanding appearance would often attract men's admiration. If Chu Luyue really fell in love with Xiao Wanru, it would not be a good thing for her. They are all beautiful. Duke Xing's mansion is full of beauties. Not only the first miss and the fifth miss, but also the second miss, the third miss, and the fourth miss are all beautiful. Old Madam is so lucky to have so many beautiful granddaughters. Honored consort Shu praised. Her words were not all false. Compared with Xiao Yanru and Xiao Wanru, Xiao Jia, Xiao Caihuan, and Xiao Keiling were a little inferior, but compared with the misses of other families, their appearance was already superior. Xiao Wanru returned to her seat, sat quietly aside, and listened to honored consort Shu and Xiao Yanru's questions and answers. Honored consort Shu asked most about old Madam's health. She was also very concerned about old Madam's health. She also asked if old Madam liked the gift she had sent to Duke Xing's mansion before. Xiao Jia, and Xiao Caihuan also said a word or two from time to time. Xiao Wanru sat aside, put her hands on her knees, and listened quietly with a smile. After talking for a while, honored consort Shu seemed to notice the silence of the others and said with a smile, "By the way, you don't have to all sit here. It's good to go out and have a look." Xiao Caihuan stood up and said respectfully to honored consort Shu, "Your Highness, I hurt my foot the day before yesterday, so I will accompany you here." Xiao Keiling looked at her sister, bit her lip, and said softly, "Your Highness, I will accompany third sister here." Xiao Jia, stood up and said to honored consort Shu, as if she and Xiao Wanru were very close, "Your Highness, fifth sister, and I want to go out for a walk. I wonder if it's okay." Honored consort Shu said in a good temper and waved her hand, and a palace maid came over, "Of course. I don't want to detain you sisters. You are all as beautiful as flowers and jade. It's really a loss for you to be detained here by me." Honored consort Shu said with a smile, "Take second miss and fifth miss to the imperial garden. It is said that the newly bloomed plum blossoms there are good. You can go and enjoy them." "Yes, Your Highness." The palace maid answered and then turned to Xiao Jia, "Fifth sister, let's go." Xiao Jia, walked up to Xiao Wanru and reached out to hold her hand. Xiao Wanru stood up and shook her sleeves, which happened to avoid Xiao Jia's hand. After bowing to honored consort Shu, she followed Xiao Jia out. She had never seen Xiao Jia so enthusiastic to enjoy the plum blossoms with her. Just now, before she could say a word, Xiao Jia had already decided her itinerary. Next, she should have arranged a play for her. In the imperial palace, she would not be too careless. After winking at Yujie, she took her out. Honored consort Shu seemed to be very kind to her on the surface, so she should not fall out with her immediately. Besides, she did not drink the cup of tea that Xiao Yanru drugged her. As long as she was careful, she should be fine. The palace maid led Xiao Wanru and Xiao Jia all the way out. On the way, they made several turns, and then the scenery in front of Xiao Wanru slowly made Xiao Wanru feel a little familiar. Looking back at the scene around her, she found that it was the place she was familiar with in her last life. For a moment, she felt a little more relaxed. Two huge rockery formed an arch bridge at the intersection in front of them, and the other side was built on the palace wall behind them. It looked disorderly and picturesque. In particular, a few plum blossoms poking out of the rockery made the scenery here have a kind of unique elegance and a faint fragrance of plum blossoms. "Mrs., please go in. There are pavilions and plum blossoms here. Although they are not as gorgeous as a large area of plum blossoms, they hide in the pavilions and create a different scenery." After the palace maid introduced them, she first entered the road between the two rockery. After entering the road, they directly entered the door of a courtyard. The plaque of the courtyard was connected to the rockery on top of the rockery. When they entered the courtyard, they could see the corner of the raised eaves from time to time among the plum blossoms, which were carved with different strange sceneries. The golden glazed tiles were picked out among the flowers, showing the ultimate wealth and honor of the world in its elegance. "Mrs., let's go to the nearby pavilion and have a seat. We can enjoy the flowers, drink tea, eat snacks, and chat. What do you think?" The palace maid reached out and pointed to a pavilion in front of them on the right and said, "Okay, I'm really tired now. The imperial palace is really big." Xiao Wanru nodded first and made up her mind. Xiao Wanru smiled slightly and didn't say anything. Seeing that they had no doubts, the palace maid took them around a corner and turned to the right. Before they got close, they saw a small pavilion in front of them. The palace maid took them to the second floor, which was a bit lower than the usual second floor, but also a bit more spacious. The balcony was surrounded by a table with a few chairs. On the table, there were already exquisite snacks and candied fruits. It seemed that they had been prepared a long time ago. They should have been prepared long ago. "Mrs., please sit down and have a rest. If you want to go down for a walk later, please feel free. I have something to do now, so I'll go back to the palace to serve honored consort Shu first. After I finish my business, I'll come and take you back, okay?" The palace maid pointed to a few chairs and said politely, "Okay, you can go back first." Xiao Jia looked around, nodded and said, "Yes, I'll leave." The palace maid bowed to them again with a smile, and then turned to go down the stairs and left slowly. Chapter 658. Qianqian. The latest chapter on medical skills of the Crown Princess was updated as soon as possible. "Fifth sister, let's sit down." Xiao Jia sat down on a chair and said with a smile. Xiao Wanru looked at her calmly and nodded, but she did not sit down and walked forward. When she got to the balcony and looked up, she saw several strong branches of plum blossoms slanting in from the balcony. There were a few yellow plum blossoms scattered on the branches, which were simple, elegant, and extremely pleasant. There was a clear lake outside the balcony. Standing in a corner of the balcony, one could enjoy the plum blossoms and the lake, which made it interesting. There was a waterside pavilion in the lake, which was winding. Among the plum trees, it made people feel more quiet and leisurely. Even though it was winter and it was not suitable to enjoy the scenery in the waterside pavilion, the waterside pavilion formed its own scenery. Although there was no mountain scenery, there was a sense of harmony between the lake and the mountain. "It's so beautiful there. Fifth sister, shall we go over and appreciate it?" Xiao Jia appeared beside her at some point, reached out and pointed at the curved waterside pavilion below and said. Xiao Wanru looked in the direction of her finger. The place she pointed at was close to the lake. There were a few red plum blossoms on the shore, which made the plum blossoms bright. Together with the blue water in front of her, it made people feel astonishingly beautiful for no reason. At this time, the plum blossoms were in full bloom. The red plum blossoms were like fire, and the branches were soaring into the sky. "Okay." Xiao Wanru walked up and nodded with her watery eyes. Xiao Jia was slightly stunned. She didn't expect Xiao Wanru to agree so readily. She looked at Xiao Wanru in confusion and found that Xiao Wanru's attention was all on the waterside pavilion below. She rolled her eyes and smiled happily. She reached out to hold Xiao Wanru's hand intimately, but Xiao Wanru turned around and happened to avoid her hand. Second sister, are you 17 years old now? Xiao Wanru asked casually as she walked out. Her words made Xiao Jia feel suffocated and extremely uncomfortable. Her age had now become the biggest taboo in her heart. The so-called old girl had now fallen on her. In the past, she had been mean to the unmarried misses of other families who were 16 or 17 years old, and now she was so afraid of this matter. Just thinking about this made her grit her teeth in hatred. If Xiao Yanru's marriage couldn't be decided, Madame of Duke Xing would have an excuse not to find a marriage for her. She had been delayed until now. The smile on her face disappeared. She looked at Xiao Wanru coldly and stopped. Fifth sister, I'm not 17 yet. Oh, it turns out that you are not yet 17. I thought. Xiao Wanru said with a smile. What do you think? Xiao Jia moved her feet and said with an unfriendly look. Xiao Wanru didn't seem to sense Xiao Jia's anger and still said with a smile, Second sister, I thought you were already 17 years old. I don't know much about the customs in the capital city, but in Jiangzhou, at your age, you should have gotten married early. I think second aunt dotes on you and big sister, so she deliberately keeps you in the boudoir. Xiao Jia was so angry that her face was about to explode. She held the handkerchief in her hand convulsively, glared at Xiao Wanru fiercely, and said through gritted teeth, Fifth sister, you did it on purpose, didn't you? On purpose? Xiao Wanru looked back at Xiao Jia as if she didn't understand why she suddenly got angry. Seeing her angry face, she gently pressed her lips with the handkerchief and said with a smile, What's wrong with you, second sister? Do you think it's because of me? I'm the youngest. Even if I'm cultivating in seclusion, I can't delay second sister. Moreover, it has nothing to do with me observing mourning or not. It has nothing to do with second sister whether I'm engaged or not. Every word she said was about herself, but the meaning in her words almost made Xiao Jia unable to control herself and give her a slap. She tried hard to suppress the anger in her heart and glared at Xiao Wanru with her red eyes. Of course, she knew why Xiao Wanru's marriage was delayed. Of course, it was not Xiao Wanru who stood in front of her, but Xiao Yanru. As long as Xiao Yanru didn't get married, she couldn't get married before Xiao Yanru. Thinking that she had been delayed until now because of Xiao Yanru, she had also cursed Xiao Yanru in her heart. However, Xiao Yanru was the eldest lineal daughter of Duke Xing's mansion and the beloved daughter of old Madam and Madam. She didn't dare to do that. Therefore, she could only please Xiao Yanru, hoping that after Xiao Yanru got married, she could get a good marriage from Madam and get married in a good way. Fifth sister, what do you mean? But at this moment, her anger was exposed by Xiao Wanru bluntly. Second sister, do you know why big sister doesn't get married? If big sister still wants to wait and continue to delay, what will you do, second sister? I'm only 14 years old now, so I'm not in a hurry. Besides, I have my grandma to worry about me. Xiao Wanru's smile became more elegant and she walked down the stairs. Her voice was not high and even a little faint. As she went downstairs, her voice became lower and lower. However, every word of these words fell into Xiao Jia's heart. As soon as they fell, they took root and stung her painfully. Her eyes were full of hatred and jealousy, which almost overflowed from her eyes. Even if Xiao Wanru was not favored, she still had Rui and great elder princess behind her. Even in the mansion, she had heard that Rui and great elder princess had a say in Xiao Wanru's marriage. This was the result of Duke Xing's mansion's concession. Therefore, even if she got engaged before many sisters, the mansion couldn't do anything to her. In this respect, Xiao Wanru was much better than her. But why? She was the elder sister. If her youngest sister got married first, how could she, as the elder sister, bear it? She would definitely be laughed at. She was originally a daughter of a concubine, so unlike the others, she might not be able to get married. Big sister will definitely get married this time. She chased after her and said coldly. Standing under a yellow plum tree downstairs, Xiao Wanru raised the corners of her mouth and looked at Xiao Jia, indifferently, as if she was watching a joke. When Xiao Jia, came over, she said slowly, Big sister doesn't know whether she will marry Prince Yu or Prince Zhou now. If the two of them haven't come to an agreement, how can the mansion be willing to marry such an important big sister? I heard that big sister has been raised in my grandma's mansion for a period of time, and you are childhood sweethearts with Prince Yu and Prince Zhou. It doesn't matter if you wait for a long time. Second sister, do you have any childhood sweethearts who can wait for you to marry into the mansion? After Xiao Wanru finished speaking, her watery eyes almost saw through Xiao Jia. The plum blossom was imprinted in her eyes, and Xiao Jia, was also imprinted in her eyes. However, Xiao Jia, didn't feel that it was beautiful. She only felt cold all over and her anger almost dissipated in an instant. Such straightforward words directly hit her heart. Although the mansion didn't make it clear, Xiao Jia, saw it every day and paid special attention to it. How could she not understand Madame's hesitation about Xiao Yanru's marriage? Madame wanted to choose a more reliable one between the two princes. However, at present, neither Prince Yu nor Prince Zhou could see who was more reliable. If Xiao Yanru really couldn't find Xiao Yanru, would Xiao Yanru stay unmarried all the time? She would wait for Xiao Yanru year after year. With her childhood affection, coupled with Xiao Yanru's talent, beauty, and the background of Duke Xing's mansion, Xiao Yanru's marriage would not be difficult, but she was different. She had no powerful person to protect her. The possibility of her not getting married would be the highest among all the sisters. The two sisters of the third branch were also lineal daughters, and their parents would worry about them. Moreover, they were younger than her. If Xiao Yanru really waited for a while, they could even learn from Xiao Wanru and force themselves to get married. Although old Madame was unhappy, she could not stop them. After all, Xiao Wanru had done it before. But what about him? Who could make the decision for him? Second sister, let's go to enjoy the plum blossoms. The scenery of the waterside pavilion is good. It would be great if big sister could also come here to enjoy it. The two of us are always too lonely. Xiao Wanru rolled her eyes and smiled. Suddenly, she was no longer aggressive. Xiao Jia, clenched her hands hard and then slowly put them down. It's indeed better for big sister to enjoy it here. Why don't you invite big sister to come with us? It's okay for third sister and fourth sister to accompany honored consort Shu. Xiao Wanru turned her eyes to the waterside pavilion. Originally, the waterside pavilion in winter was not very interesting, but because of the red plum blossoms on the shore, the whole waterside pavilion seemed to be full of vitality. The scenery was bright and colorful. It's indeed a good idea. Xiao Jia, said with a smile, and a trace of determination flashed in her eyes. She really couldn't let Xiao Yanru go on like this. If Xiao Yanru didn't get married, she would not get well. Anyway, they were in the imperial palace now, and Madame could not find them here. She just took advantage of the situation. After something happened, she could blame it on Xiao Wanru. Anyway, it was Xiao Wanru who proposed it. After sending her maid out to invite Xiao Yanru to come over, Xiao Jia, and Xiao Wanru walked to the waterside pavilion by the plum blossom forest. Stepping onto the waterside pavilion, he walked forward. Not long after, he unexpectedly came to a small pavilion. The interior had already been decorated. There was a veil outside the pavilion, and he could vaguely see the fruits and snacks on the stone table inside. It should be a place arranged by honored consort Shu for them to enjoy. Fifth sister, let's go in and have a seat, shall we? Xiao Jia, looked at the location and knew that it should be this place. She pointed at the pavilion with a smile and said, Okay. Xiao Wanru nodded and followed Xiao Jia, to move forward. The two of them entered the pavilion and sat down. Yu Jia lifted the veil a little more, sat on the railing, and looked at the lake in front of her. There were a few plum blossoms in a high-necked beauty vase on the stone table. They were elegant and beautiful, which was very pleasant. It was indeed a good place to enjoy the scenery. Compared with the high pavilion just now, they could see it more vividly and more intimately. As soon as they sat down here, they saw a palace maid leading Xiao Yenru over slowly on the shore outside the waterside pavilion. Xiao Yenru, who was beautifully dressed, was very attractive even though she was only a figure in the distance. She was a graceful beauty. No matter when she came, she was extremely beautiful. It wasn't just the two people in the pavilion who saw this scene. Chapter 659. Remember in 1 second, 800 mail sign small/say net. This is a wonderful free reading without a pop-up window. Second sister, I'm going to take a walk on the shore. The red plum blossoms are really beautiful. The red plum blossoms in our mansion don't seem to be so outstanding. Xiao Wanru stood up and said, Big sister is coming. Please wait here for her. Aren't you going to wait for big sister? Xiao Jia asked with an unkind look. I want to go and enjoy the rewards first. It's rare to have such a chance to enter the imperial palace. Xiao Wanru said with a smile and turned to go out. Xiao Jia wanted to stop her. Seeing that she was leaving so resolutely, she knew that she couldn't stop her. If it were other sisters in the mansion, she could take advantage of their sisterly relationship. But Xiao Wanru in front of her was obviously not one of them. She could only watch Xiao Wanru leave, but she couldn't leave. When Xiao Yenru came over, she had to explain what had happened just now. She had to find a good excuse for herself before it happened. Thinking of this, it was not so difficult to accept Xiao Wanru's departure. She could take this opportunity to tell Xiao Yenru that Xiao Wanru had not drunk wine before and put all the blame on Xiao Wanru. Xiao Wanru didn't take the waterside pavilion that she had come from before. Instead, she chose another waterside pavilion and walked in another direction, so she couldn't meet Xiao Yenru. One came over, and the other stayed away. Seeing Xiao Wanru leave from a distance, Xiao Yenru frowned tightly and wondered if Xiao Wanru had drunk the prepared wine. She quickened her pace and thought that she had to ask Yujie about it. The waterside pavilion was curved. It looked quite close, but it was actually quite far. Two women were walking slowly in the waterside pavilion, their skirts fluttering in the wind. Every step they took made them look like celestial concubines descending to the mortal world. But the two of them were different. Xiao Yenru was dressed in a dark purple robe and a colorful palace dress with large pieces of peonies embroidered at the hem of the dress, which looked gorgeous and gorgeous. Her outstanding face was even more attractive and made people's hearts sway. So what if she was the #1 beauty in the capital? However, Xiao Yenru, who was dressed in gorgeous clothes, was outshone by another delicate figure in the waterside pavilion. Her plain long dress was as elegant as a fairy from the 9th heaven who had landed in a waterside pavilion. The long dress accentuated her slender and graceful figure. When she raised her eyes, her exquisite brows and eyes were hard to describe. The color of the mountains and rivers was extremely beautiful, but it was not as beautiful as the trace of water in her eyes. It was as if the color of the water and sky of the entire waterside pavilion had merged into her eyes. Her long eyelashes fluttered, brightening up the entire lake. She took another waterside pavilion. When the waterside pavilion turned to the shore, she blended into the depths of the plum blossom forest. Her snow-white clothes made the red plum blossom forest come to life, which was as beautiful as a dream. She almost looked like a fairy who had fallen to the mortal world. In contrast, Xiao Yenru, who had been extremely beautiful, was not as beautiful as before and almost became the background behind her. Chu Luyue stood on an attic and looked at Xiao Wanru's back. The handle of the fan, which had been closed and tapped on his palm, fell into his palm and stopped. His eyes unconsciously followed her back. When he couldn't see the beauty in the depths of the shore, he turned around and looked at the waterside pavilion with a little confusion. Did he make a mistake just now? There was only Xiao Yenru walking in the waterside pavilion. There was no one else. Did he make a mistake? What are you looking at? You are so fascinated by it. Chu Liuzhou's lazy voice came from behind, and a hand was put on his shoulder. Chu Liuzhou also came over and looked out. Xiao Yanru, who was in the waterside pavilion, also came into his eyes. With a trace of deepness in his eyes, he said with a smile, "It turns out to be the first miss of Duke Xing's mansion. I was wondering what you were looking at. You are so fascinated by it. Why is the first Miss Xiao here?" Chu Luiyue tapped his palm gently with the fan in his hand and said very casually, with his eyes falling on Xiao Yanru. "She should be summoned by a concubine in the palace." Chu Liuzhou said indifferently, turned around and sat down in the room again. "Isn't it the Empress?" Chu Luiyue also smiled and turned back. There were fruits in the room and a pot on it, which contained wine instead of tea. He reached out to pour a cup for himself and Chu Liuzhou. After putting down the wine pot, he picked up the cup in front of him, took a sip gently, and nodded. "It's really good. It deserves to be a tribute." Chu Liuzhou also picked up the wine cup in front of him. After taking a sip, he put it down with some disgust. "It's too light. It's like a woman's drink. It's sweet and doesn't taste good. Don't say it's not good. It's really a tribute sent from the south of the Yangtze River today. My father said it's excellent." Chu Luiyue chuckled involuntarily and tapped the wine pot in front of him with the fan in his hand. "The palace specially prepared it for us knowing that we're here to enjoy it. What do you think, Commandery Prince Qing?" Commandery Prince Qing, Chu Qing, was also there. At this time, he was also sitting by the window with a wine cup in his hand and was also enjoying the scenery. The side he was looking at happened to be the side where Xiao Yanru came over. Hearing Chu Luiyue mention him, he hurriedly turned his head and said with a smile, "This wine is excellent. Maybe I'm a little softer after drinking it." After saying that, he took another sip. He was not ranked in the same rank as Chu Luiyue. His situation was different from Chu Liuchen's. He could only be regarded as a cousin, but not a prince of the current emperor. Naturally, his treatment in all aspects was much worse. Moreover, his situation was also embarrassing. Although he was also the descendant of the former emperor, he was just an unvalued prince. Without the favor of the Empress Dowager and the emperor, even if he was in good health, it was useless. Everyone knew that he could only be an idle prince and live a good life for the sake of the emperor's reputation. However, he went to the palace to pay his respects the most among the princes. Every time he entered the palace, the Empress Dowager and the Empress Dowager would pay their respects to him very respectfully and politely. Today happened to be the day when he entered the palace. It was an accident that Chu Luiyue and Chu Liuzhou met him. In the past, if they met each other, they might not necessarily invite each other to go with them. But this time was different. Chu Luiyue invited him to enjoy the wine with great enthusiasm. Chu Liuzhou could say that the wine was not good, but he couldn't. He only said it after putting himself in a very low position. "If you like it, Commandery Prince Qing, you can drink more." After tapping his palm a few times, Chu Luiyue said with an extremely faint smile, "Let's go down for a walk. It's said that there are cakes and food on our way there. Then let's go down." Chu Liuzhou also stood up and said indifferently. Chu Qing put down the wine glass in his hand, stood up, and looked out of the window casually. He couldn't see Xiao Yanru outside the window. She should have gone to the pavilion to have a rest. At that moment, he saw Xiao Yanru's elegant demeanor. Although he had seen Xiao Yanru before, he was not so amazed by her as this time. It was a pity that such a girl, who had the background of Duke Xing's mansion, could not marry him, which made Chu Qing feel very regretful. He was very willing to marry Xiao Yanru in terms of both the background of Duke Xing's mansion and her appearance. However, such a girl would definitely not be a match for an idle prince like him. He knew himself well. But even so, he would not give up. As long as she was not married, there was still a chance. If Xiao Yanru failed in the consort selection this time, he could go to the palace to propose marriage. The previous one could actually be a concubine, which could be regarded as a fair match for him. Even if he was an idle prince, he still had a chance in the future. Moreover, he had the bloodline of the royal family and was also a duke. Other noble families could not compare to him. Thinking of this, it seemed that there was still a little chance. Of course, the possibility of making the first Miss Xiao fail in the consort selection was very small. Just now, Prince Yu stood by the window and should also be looking at the first Miss Xiao. Moreover, he was as amazed by her as she was and would definitely become her opponent. It would be great if she could prevent the first Miss Xiao from participating in the consort selection, or it would be even better if she could be engaged before they got married. With this in mind, she followed Chu Luyue and Chu Liuzhou forward. After Chu Luyue and Chu Liuzhou got down from the attic, they also went to the waterside pavilion. Along the way, they didn't know whether it was a coincidence or not, but they also took the waterside pavilion that Xiao Yanru had taken just now. It seemed that they were also heading for the waterside pavilion. Two of the three of them knew that Xiao Yanru was in the waterside pavilion, but Chu Liuzhou didn't. In the waterside pavilion, Xiao Yanru's face immediately darkened when she heard that Xiao Wanru had left without drinking. She stood up and was about to find Xiao Wanru. The purpose of leading Xiao Wanru here today was to make her drink the wine on the table. With the previous medicine and the current wine, Xiao Wanru would definitely be dizzy. At this time, it was a matter of course to arrange for Xiao Wanru to enter the water. Her grandma and honored consort Shu intended to arrange for Chu Luyue to save Xiao Wanru, saying that he wanted Xiao Wanru to marry into Prince Yu's mansion as a concubine. After all, Xiao Wanru entered Prince Yu's mansion in such a disgraceful situation. Even if Rui and great elder princess said something, it would be useless. However, Xiao Yanru was unwilling. She felt that if Rui and great elder princess really fought with Duke Xing's mansion and asked the Empress Dowager and the Emperor for a decree, Xiao Wanru might have a chance to become the legal wife. If Xiao Wanru became Prince Yu's wife, it would not be easy for her and Chu Luyue to have a relationship in the future. Although Chu Liuzhou and Chu Luyue were the same in the hearts of other people in Duke Xing's mansion and were likely to be the winners in the future, in Xiao Yanru's heart, she felt that Chu Luyue was more suitable. After all, Chu Liuzhou seemed to be a little too rough and not good at coaxing people. Whether it was when they were young or now, although they had written to each other in private and maintained the childhood friendship, compared with Chu Luyue, Chu Liuzhou's letters were obviously much less, and even the words of love were less. From this aspect, Xiao Yanru really didn't want Xiao Wanru to have a relationship with Chu Luyue. Therefore, she asked Chu Luyue to bring Chu Liuzhou here, saying that she thought Chu Liuzhou was more suitable. Of course, this was just what she said to Chu Luyue. In fact, she hoped that it was the guards who could save Xiao Wanru. If she arranged for a guard to save Xiao Wanru, it would be a safe plan for Xiao Wanru to marry a guard after she was saved. Of course, if Xiao Wanru couldn't be saved and died in the lake in the winter, it would be her own fault. Originally, these wine and pastries were not prepared for them. If she got drunk and had an accident, she couldn't blame others. Chapter 660. Go and find her. Xiao Yanru frowned and said impatiently. Big sister, But what if she doesn't come? Xiao Jia had been timid and careful in front of Xiao Yanru. If she doesn't come, find a way to force her to drink. It doesn't matter how much you can make her drink. Xiao Yanru reached out to pick up the pot which looked like a teapot but was actually a wine pot. She poured a cup of wine in front of her, brought it to Xiao Jia, and said coldly, the wine is not strong and tastes light. Just let her drink a few mouthfuls. Xiao Wanru had been drugged, and all she needed was wine. No matter how much she drank, even if it was only a mouthful, it could make her delirious for a while. As for what would happen next, she didn't have to worry about it. Even if Rui and great elder princess forcefully forbade Xiao Wanru from marrying a guard, Xiao Wanru would not be able to marry another prince in the future, no matter Chu Luyue or Chu Liuzhou. Both of them were originally her backup. How could she let Xiao Wanru take advantage of them? But, Xiao Jia, was still hesitating. Seeing Xiao Yanru's fierce eyes, she was so scared that she hurriedly stood up like a mouse seeing a cat. She was very arrogant in front of Xiao Wanru, but she was extremely afraid in front of Xiao Yanru. She was forced to come out of the pavilion. When she saw the princes coming from the opposite side, her face changed slightly. She stood still and simply waited there. If she could marry into the mansions of these princes, even if she couldn't be the legal wife, it would be better than being unable to get married in the future. It was rare to encounter such an opportunity, so of course she would stay. Although she had seen them, there was still a distance between them. After standing still, Xiao Jia bit her lip and turned back. She had to tell Xiao Yanru about it. Otherwise, Xiao Yanru and Madame would not spare her after returning. Big sister, what's wrong with you? Turning back to enter the pavilion, Xiao Jia looked at Xiao Yanru, whose face was flushed, in astonishment, and then looked at the wine cup that had fallen on the ground. As soon as she turned around, Xiao Yanru got herself drunk. Xiao Yanru had come here in a hurry with the palace maid who led the way for honored consort Shu. The palace maid had left after bringing them here. There was no one else in the pavilion except Xiao Yanru. Looking at Xiao Yanru, who was leaning against the fence with her eyes narrowed as if she had fallen asleep, she recalled what Xiao Wanru had said before. If Xiao Yanru couldn't get married, it would be difficult for her to get married. At this moment, she was so bold that she walked over, picked up Xiao Yanru, and pushed her out of the fence. When she came here before, she had looked at the terrain. The veil in the pavilion was fluttering in the wind, but it also blocked most of the view. She didn't know if it was a coincidence or something else, but there was a small gap on the other side of the pavilion. It wasn't big, but it was just enough for one person to squeeze through. Miss. Her maid was so shocked that her face changed drastically, and she said in a trembling voice. Quick, help me. Xiao Jia's face was pale, and she looked flustered and cold. Xiao Wanru's words rang in her ears like a magic spell, making her forget her fear for a moment. There was such a good opportunity at the moment. Whether Xiao Yanru married Prince Yu or Prince Shou, she wouldn't suffer a loss. Moreover, she drank the wine herself. Why did she get drunk as soon as she drank it? Maybe it was because she couldn't hold her liquor well. Such a rare good opportunity might not come again in the future. Xiao Jia's heart beat faster and her hands were sore, but she still dragged Xiao Yanru to the gap. Under Xiao Yanru's fierce glare, the maid also hurried over to help. Although both of them were women and were flustered, they successfully pushed Xiao Yanru down. Big sister. Big sister. Big sister. As soon as Xiao Yanru was pushed down, Xiao Jia fell to the fence with her whole body aching. She reached out as if to grab Xiao Yanru's clothes and shouted in panic. She did hook Xiao Yanru's clothes with her hand, but she didn't pull it. Instead, she pushed Xiao Yanru out with force. As soon as she was immersed in the cold lake water, Xiao Yanru suddenly sobered up and immediately shouted in panic, "Help, help!" At the same time, she slapped the water hard. Although she was proficient in zither, chess, calligraphy and painting, she didn't know how to swim. Moreover, it was winter. When she was soaked in the cold river water, her clothes dragged her body down. The servant girl behind Xiao Jia also shouted desperately. In fact, it happened very quickly. After Xiao Jia came in and saw Xiao Yanru, she immediately made a decision in her mind. She and her maid decisively pushed Xiao Yanru into the water. Moreover, Xiao Yanru struggled and shouted loudly for help. A group of guards passed by on the shore not far away. Hearing the sound of someone falling into the water, several guards immediately jumped into the water. Chu Luyue and Chu Liuzhou had approached at this time. Seeing the scene in front of them, their faces changed dramatically. Chu Luyue was surprised that it was Xiao Yanru who fell into the water. Shouldn't it be the fifth miss of Duke Xing's mansion? He had met her several times 3 years ago, so his memory was still 3 years ago. But now his memory was vague. Even so, he couldn't mistake her for someone else. The person in front of him was clearly Xiao Yanru, not Xiao Wanru. Chu Liuzhou was also shocked. He didn't expect to see Xiao Yanru suddenly fall into the water. Seeing the person in front of him, he reached out to take off his cloak and wanted to jump into the lake. Compared with Chu Luiyue, he was in much better health. Although it was a little cold in winter, he and Xiao Yanru had a good relationship. Chu Luiyue grabbed him. He didn't want to go into the water, but he didn't want Chu Liuzhou to go down the mountain either. Second brother, let's go to the pavilion. It's close there. Maybe we can pull her up directly. Okay. Chu Liuzhou looked at it and thought it made sense, so he ran to the pavilion. However, before they ran into the pavilion, Chu Qing had jumped into the lake quickly and hugged Xiao Yanru in front of them. They didn't know when he ran past them just now. Although Xiao Yanru was not heavy, her clothes were very heavy in the lake, so Chu Qing couldn't get up for a while. On the other side, two guards swam over and helped Chu Qing carry Xiao Yanru to the pavilion. In the pavilion, Xiao Jia had reached out and wanted to hold Xiao Yanru's hand while crying in panic. Chu Liuyue's face was very ugly and almost livid. Chu Qing held Xiao Yanru tightly in front of so many people. Although it was winter and she was wearing a lot of clothes, her reputation had been tarnished in front of so many people. If she married into Prince Yu's mansion, she would probably not be the legal princess. The dignity of the royal family was the most important, not to mention that this was Chu Qing. Chu Liuzhou's face was also very ugly. He had the idea of making Xiao Yanru his princess long ago and thought that the two of them were in love with each other. However, under his nose, Chu Qing held Xiao Yanru so tightly. There were not only Chu Luiyue but also a group of guards present. After such a thing happened, his father would definitely get the news. He and Chu Luiyue were in the same trouble, so he couldn't marry Xiao Yanru anymore. Imperial father didn't agree, and neither did Imperial mother. Finally, Xiao Yanru was pulled out. Her face was pale and she shivered in the cold. Chu Liuzhou threw the cloak in his hand over with a dark face. Xiao Jia took it and hurriedly wrapped Xiao Yanru tightly. Chu Luiyue asked the eunuch to help Xiao Jia and her maid carry Xiao Yanru to the warm room on the shore with a sullen face. It was so cold. If she didn't change her clothes after being soaked in the lake, she would probably be in trouble. Chu Qing also got up from the lake and shook the water off his body. His face was blue with the cold. After cupping his hands to Chu Luiyue and Chu Liuzhou, he also hurried to change his clothes. It became strangely quiet in the pavilion. Both Chu Luiyue and Chu Liuzhou's faces darkened. No one had expected this result. Why did she suddenly fall into the lake? After a long while, Chu Liuzhou said coldly and slapped the pillar beside him heavily. He wanted to marry Xiao Yanru and asked Duke Xing to help him. But now everything was over. How could he not be angry? Let's go and have a look and see what's going on. Chu Luiyue couldn't calm down either, and his face darkened. The two of them went out of the pavilion and went to the nearby warm room. When they entered the courtyard, they saw Xiao Jia walking around in the courtyard in panic. When she saw Chu Luiyue and Chu Liuzhou coming over, she hurried over, knelt down before them with a plop, and said sadly, "Your Highness, please save my life." What the hell is going on? Chu Liuzhou said impatiently. I don't know. I was going to look for fifth sister before, but when I went out, I saw several princes coming over. I turned around and told big sister about it. I didn't expect that when I went in, I saw big sister fall into the lake. I couldn't stop her even if I wanted to. Xiao Jia cried with tears all over her face. It happened in front of them. Chu Luiyue and Chu Liuzhou could be regarded as witnesses, but Chu Luiyue knew something else. He always felt that Xiao Yanru would not be so stupid. She had planned to set up others, but she had schemed against herself. At this time, when he heard Xiao Jia mention Xiao Wanru, his heart skipped a beat. Could it be Xiao Wanru's counterattack? Where is the fifth miss of your mansion now? Chu Luiyue asked. I don't know. I saw fifth sister leave before, and then big sister came. When big sister came, fifth sister had already left. I didn't see big sister drink, but there was an empty wine glass on the table later. Xiao Jia was almost incoherent. It was obvious that she was frightened and couldn't even speak fluently. Xiao Jia naturally wanted to put the blame on Xiao Wanru. However, Xiao Wanru and Xiao Yanru didn't meet in the waterside pavilion, so it was easy to find out. She didn't dare to say anything about it. She clenched her handkerchief tightly with her fingers. She was really afraid and panicked. Although some of her words were intentional, most of them were true. Xiao Yanru drank wine, but she didn't drink it in front of her. After that, she fell into the lake, which had nothing to do with her. In such a short time, no one would have thought that it had something to do with her. She had originally thought of it on a whim. Honored consort Shu is here. The sharp voice of the eunuch suddenly came from outside the courtyard, making Xiao Jia, who was kneeling, shiver more and more. She looked at the two young princes in front of her pleadingly. At this time, Xiao Jia not only had a lingering fear, but also regretted it. Why did she do such a thing on impulse at that time? Now that honored consort Shu was here, would she believe what she said? Chapter 661. Qianqian. The latest chapter on medical skills of the Crown Princess was updated as soon as possible. Miss, aren't we going back now? In fact, Yu Jie and Xiao Wanru did not go out of the courtyard but hid in the depths of the plum forest. The scene just now was so fast and shocking that Yu Jie, who was bold, could not come to her senses at this time. The first miss suddenly fell into the water, and the person she saved was not Prince Yu or Prince Shou, but Commandery Prince Qing, who seemed to be the most useless. Although she knew that the miss must have made other preparations when she got the wet handkerchief from the miss, she did not expect that such a fierce thing could happen when the miss was not here. Who was Xiao Yanru? The most favored eldest daughter of lineal descent in Duke Xing's mansion was prepared for the imperial family. In fact, not only for the imperial family, but also for the position of empress. In the current situation, her reputation was ruined. As the future empress, she could not be extremely beautiful, but she must have a flawless reputation. Not only the empress, but also the reputation of the prince's concubines could not be tarnished. Now if Xiao Yanru did not marry Commandery Prince Qing, she could only spend the rest of her life in a secular Buddha. How could the ambitious Xiao Yanru give up so easily? She would go crazy. Therefore, she would never accept this matter so easily. Xiao Wanru looked at the lake opposite her calmly and coldly. The plum forest covered her figure, but she could clearly see the scene in the waterside pavilion on the lake. Yu Jie, are you afraid? Miss. I'm not afraid of the first miss, but I'm afraid that the first miss will hurt you at all costs when she finds out something. Yu Jie said subconsciously. She was really worried that Xiao Yanru would take revenge on her master like crazy. In Duke Xing's mansion, Xiao Yanru was the only pearl in the palm and the hope of the whole Duke Xing's mansion. If she took revenge on her master like crazy, who could protect her master? Xiao Wanru's voice was very soft and calm. Her clear watery eyes slightly raised, showing a trace of hidden charm in the past. In the past, she had always been very indifferent to people and had a kind of indifference. With this indifference, it caused her original charm to decrease a bit, and she was not as conspicuous. The reality in her previous life's dream told her that if she was a little more gentle, this charm would be even more obvious, and she would also be criticized by others. Since that was the case, she was willing to use her coldness to keep people at a distance. The people of the world had a bias towards the appearance of women. They were more tolerant towards women who looked delicate and pretty. They felt that they were the model of a gentle and dignified woman. As for her, who had a seductive appearance, they more or less felt that she wasn't a good woman and would be looked down upon by others. However, she just so happened to have this kind of appearance that people despised. In her previous life, after Wen Shiqi's death, she was chased out of the Prime Minister's residence because her lips were too bright. Even though she was mentally and physically exhausted in the morning hall, she still looked more charming and beautiful than ordinary people. This became his crime, so he was chased out of the Wen manor with a groundless accusation. Even if I don't do anything, Xiao Yanru will fight against me like crazy and won't stop until she is dead. Xiao Wanru said lightly in a very light voice with a trace of calmness, as if she was talking about someone else's business. In this life, she lived a sober and ruthless life. She would not let herself become a stepping stone for others to set foot on the road to a high position. She had to trample on Xiao Yanru. Since Xiao Wanru knew that she was the daughter of the former heir of Duke Xing, Xiao Yanru and Madame of Duke Xing had not left her a way out. Just like in her previous life, they would not stop until they ruined her reputation and left a bad reputation after her death. She smiled slightly like a blooming flower. In this case, why should she show mercy? In her previous life, she died and became the first woman to be cut in half at the waist. She died in a humiliating way and added a thick stroke in the history of officials. It was a shameful life and a disgraceful stroke. A girl who couldn't even find her biological parents, yet she fell into the traps of others again and again. In the end, she became as inconspicuous as a speck of dust. Who would care about the life of a child without parents? Who would protect her? She clenched her hands hard in her sleeves, and her sharp nails hurt her palms. But she slowly relaxed. Since it was a hatred that could not be resolved, she would not resolve it. After her rebirth, she knew the road she was going to take. An eye for an eye. She was fearless. In this life, she would take revenge if there was hatred, and repay kindness if there was kindness. She, who had climbed up from hell, was not afraid of the blood on her hands. Now that the royal family was involved in the matter, it was not just a matter of Duke Xing's mansion. Even if she also died a horrible death in this life, she would not retreat. Yujie fell silent and bit her lip, with a strange feeling surging in her heart. With the first Miss Xiao's character, she would really fight against her master to the death. Even if her master retreated, so what? Just like today, she had schemed against her master in the carriage. She had smelled the handkerchief afterward. With her familiarity with pharmacology, she naturally knew that something would happen when the medicine and wine were mixed. In this matter, not only did the first Miss Xiao intervene, but also old Madame, honored consort Xu, and Madame of Duke Xing. If her master hadn't found the opportunity, she would probably be the one in trouble at this time. When the accident happened just now, she also saw a few guards helping to save Xiao Yanru ashore. If it were her master, they would even force her master to marry the guards. Either the first miss or her master would be in trouble. In that kind of vicious scheme, her master would only be more pitiful and desperate than the first Miss Xiao at present. As the personal maid of her master, she could not flinch. "Miss, I understand. I will never hold you back. What should I do now?" Thinking about it, Yujie's face returned to its usual calmness. Her master's beautiful and calm face gave her all the courage. For the sake of her master, she would not flinch. No matter how crazy the first miss was, she would stand in front of her master and never let the first miss hurt her master. "Let's go over there for a walk. It has nothing to do with us." Xiao Wanru raised the corner of her mouth sarcastically and turned to walk out of the plum forest. "Aren't we going to see the first miss? If we go to see the first miss now, honored consort Xu and the others will definitely feel your kindness." Although Yujie followed her out, she still asked in confusion. "So what if they feel my kindness? They won't be soft-hearted and will even blame it on me." A trace of bloodthirsty hostility flashed across Xiao Wanru's calm eyes. "How could it be?" Yujie gasped. "Why not? Prince Yu and Prince Zhou will take Xiao Yanru's side and don't want her reputation to be tarnished. As for Chu Qing, even if he wants to marry Xiao Yanru, he doesn't dare to say anything in front of them. What's more, honored consort Xu is here. If honored consort Xu orders a few guards to say that it was me who fell into the water, Prince Yu and Prince Zhou will also change their words. Since everyone who saw it said so, it must be me who did it." Xiao Wanru said. Yujie's face changed dramatically in horror. Her lips trembled, and it took her a long time to find her voice. How could they be so shameless? If it was really like this, it would be her master who would be humiliated and have her reputation ruined. Why is it impossible? Anyway, no one else knows it. They would be happy to exchange a useless fifth miss for the noble first Miss Xiao's reputation. Both Chu Luyue and Chu Liuzhou had their own selfish motives. Given such a chance to save Xiao Yanru's reputation, they would not hesitate to put themselves in hell eternally. Let's go. Xiao Wanru said and continued to walk forward slowly. She was familiar with this section of the road in her last life. Although she was not very clear when walking now, she could still take a detour. She had to meet more people and let them know that she was not at the place where she fell into the water just now, so that she could save herself. A sound suddenly came from the depths of the plum forest, as if a wheel had run over it. Yujie took 2 steps forward vigilantly, stood in front of Xiao Wanru, and looked at the plum forest in front of her. The sound was getting closer and closer, and then a beautiful young man in a snow-white fox fur coat appeared in front of them. The luxurious snow-white fox fur coat looked a little thin on his body. Even though he looked ill, people could see that he was as beautiful as jade. The plum forest was originally beautiful, and the scenery here was also the best in the imperial palace. But when the young man in a wheelchair appeared in front of them, all of this became the most inconspicuous scene on the background board. It turned out to be Chu Luchen. Xiao Wanru was relieved. Before she found more people to prove that it was not her who fell into the water just now, she was still in danger. Now Chu Luchen was here. That was great. Xiao Xuanzi pushed the wheelchair over with a smile, and then let go of the wheelchair. He walked up to Xiao Wanru and bowed respectfully. Greetings, fifth miss. Why are you here? Xiao Wanru raised her watery eyes and asked. Shouldn't Chu Luchen be recuperating in the mansion recently? Why did he appear by this cold lake in such a cold winter? Although he was wearing a fox fur coat, his body had always been weaker than that of ordinary people, so it was not good for him to come here in this way. Why can't I come here? Chu Luchen actually stood up, smiled gently, walked to Xiao Wanru, and then naturally reached out to hold Xiao Wanru's hand. Let's go to see Imperial Grandmother. Are you all right? Seeing him walk over leisurely without any difficulty as she had imagined, Xiao Wanru widened her watery eyes in surprise and looked him up and down. His state was extremely abnormal. In the past, when he was in good health, he didn't seem to be in such a good state. Why did he seem to be much better after being so frightened and fainted by her? Although his lips were still pale and his face was pale, he seemed to be in good spirits. When he held her hand, she still felt cold, but it was not the bone-chilling feeling in the past. Chu Luchen in front of her was still the same Chu Luchen, but it seemed that he was not just this Chu Luchen. He slowly overlapped with the Chu Luchen in her memory, who stood high above the Dan Ke and looked down at the common people. This person was really different from before. There were no obvious symptoms, but with the mentality of a doctor, she felt that something she didn't know had happened. Chapter 662. Remember in 1 second, 800 mail sign small/say net, what can happen to me? Let's go. What can happen to me? Let's go. Chu Luchen squinted at her and smiled gently. Xiao Wanru was pulled to the front of the wheelchair and then released. Seeing Chu Luchen slowly sitting in the wheelchair again, Xiao Xuanzi slowly pushed the wheelchair forward again. Honored consort Shu used to have a child. I heard that the child's death has something to do with my mother. Chu Luchen said. Xiao Wanru was stunned, but immediately understood why Chu Luchen was talking about the reason why honored consort Shu hurt her. What does that have to do with me? Of course it has something to do with you. She should have heard some news from the people around Imperial Grandmother recently and knew that you might enter Prince Chen's mansion, so she hurt you. In fact, she wants to hurt me. Chu Luchen said leisurely, looking indifferent. Only a trace of madness and hostility flashed in his eyes. Even though he looked calm on the surface, his hostility was still with a bloodthirsty aura. Since he figured out his feelings for Xiao Wanru, he was no longer the Chu Luchen who gave up on himself and was casual and at ease. Honored consort Shu stretched her hand a little too far, so she just stomped it. She wants to ruin my reputation so that I can't enter Prince Chen's mansion. Xiao Wanru understood and frowned slightly. She really thinks that she can do whatever she wants in the imperial palace because of my uncle's guilt towards her. Chu Luchen raised the corner of his mouth sarcastically. Not only her, but also her family wanted to send people to Prince Yu's mansion and Prince Zhou's mansion, hoping that one day there would be another favored consort. What happened today? Xiao Wanru wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. In fact, she wanted to make it clear, but she didn't know where to start at the moment, so she could only pause for a moment. I saw it clearly today. It was the second miss of your mansion who pushed Xiao Yenru into the water. Before that, Xiao Yenru had been drunk. Chu Luchen said gently. His voice was handsome and leisurely, as if it could penetrate people's hearts. Your Highness, did you see it just now? Xiao Wanru lowered her watery eyes and looked at Chu Luchen, unable to hide the shock in her heart. Although she had calculated everything and knew that Xiao Jia would definitely deal with Xiao Yenru for the sake of her future and marriage, she didn't see the actual situation. According to Chu Liuchen's words, he should have seen the whole scene. Of course I saw it. Coincidentally, my attic happened to face the gap of that pavilion. Chu Luchen said with a smile. Plum blossoms bloomed on the lakeside, and there was a pavilion of various shapes next to the plum forest, giving the lake an air of royal honor. Sitting in the pavilion and admiring the scenery, there was a special and refined atmosphere. This was also an important reason why the waterside pavilion was decorated with fine gauze in order to look good. It was both good-looking and practical, so how could it not be covered with light muslin? Amidst the shade of the plum trees, the red plum blossoms were like fire, the white plum blossoms were pure and elegant, and the yellow plum blossoms were carefree. Together with the lakeside pavilion, it was a unique experience to sit in the attic. What do you think they will do? Although Xiao Wanru had a conclusion in her heart, she still couldn't help asking. She raised her watery eyes and looked at Chu Liuchen's face. Of course they will try to push the blame on you. Chu Luchen slightly raised the corners of his mouth and said lazily. His words made Xiao Wanru fall silent for a while. Although this was what she had guessed, she still felt angry in her heart. She clenched her hands tightly on both sides and then relaxed. Don't worry. As long as I'm here, none of them can frame you. Chu Luchen squinted at her and suddenly smiled. Xiao Wanru bit her thick cherry lips and suppressed an inexplicable sour feeling in her heart. She had never felt this kind of sour feeling when she was plotted against by her blood relatives. Now Chu Liuchen's words made her feel extremely sour, and her clear watery eyes became misty. She bit her lips hard to suppress the sourness that was about to rush to her eyes. Your Highness, are you getting better? Not bad. Not only did I get better, but I also vomited a lot of poisonous blood. My serious illness is also much better. Chu Luchen tilted his head to look at her and said with a meaningful smile. Your serious illness is also getting better. Xiao Wanru was stunned. She turned her watery eyes to Chu Luchen and asked in surprise. She was proficient in medical skills and knew that Chu Liuchen's symptoms were extremely difficult to cure. Why can't I get better? This king has taken a trip to the King of Hell this time, so it's good to have such a pleasant surprise. So, Your Highness, you will get better. Xiao Wanru hesitated for a moment and asked cautiously. It was not only about the improvement of Chu Liuchen's health. How could she not know the stormy waves contained in it? I have been recuperating for so many years. After this incident, I should naturally get better. Chu Luchen raised his eyebrows slightly and said casually. So, would Chu Luchen rise up and trample everyone under his feet? Xiao Wanru was shocked. She turned her head in a panic to avoid Chu Liuchen's handsome eyes. She didn't know why her heart beat wildly a few times and she lost her previous worries. In the last life, Chu Liuchen's fierce and desperate eyes appeared in her mind. The dark feeling that seemed to destroy the world enveloped her heart and made her inexplicably feel breathless. Her hand was gently held, waking her up from her suffocating state. She only felt a slight sweat on her back. Even though it was just a gaze in her memory, it made her feel a sense of despair and darkness. It was like a deathly stillness, but it also felt like everything was about to be destroyed. What had he experienced? Why did he have such a look? What was the feeling that seemed to drag the whole world into the boundless bloody darkness? Your Highness, it's naturally good that you can get better, but, others. Xiao Wanru reminded him softly. She didn't know what had happened to him in the last life, but it must be fatal for him. But what else would happen to him, who was superior, to make him feel desperate and dark? What happens to others has nothing to do with me. You can rest assured that I will protect you. When our marriage is announced, I will definitely support you above board and will never let anyone bully you again. Chu Luqin said meaningfully. His words were very gentle as he used to be in front of others. But Chu Yuqin's eyes seemed to contain something, which made Xiao Wanru feel that her heart was hit hard. She bit her lip and suppressed a trace of palpitation in her heart. It should be because the current Chu Luqin looked different from the desperate and bloodthirsty figure in her memory. Your Highness, those people. She looked up and suddenly saw several guards in front of Merlin. Her eyes turned cold, and she gently broke away from Chu Yuqin's hand. They came so fast. Chu Luqin raised his eyes and squinted at several guards in front of him. His eyes were bright and beautiful. Xiao Xuanzi pushed the wheelchair forward, as if he didn't see several guards standing in front of him, who obviously came to block the way. Xiao Wanru hesitated for a moment, but she didn't stop and followed Chu Luqin. Greetings, Your Highness. One of the guards, who seemed to be the leader, was also stunned when he saw Chu Luqin coming out. He didn't expect to see Chu Luqin here, so he hurriedly stepped forward and saluted. What's the matter? Chu Luqin asked lazily. I'm here for 5th Miss Xiao. Something happened to 1st Miss Xiao just now, and I want to ask 5th Miss Xiao to take care of her. The guard reported appropriately. After that, he saluted Xiao Wanru again. At this time, only the 5th Miss of Duke Xing's mansion could appear here. Who sent you here? Chu Luqin raised the corner of his mouth lazily, and his smile was a little cold, but his eyes became more and more shimmering. Xiao Xuanzi stepped back calmly. His master was in a very dangerous situation. Your Highness, I'm here to help. I'm not sent here by anyone. 1st Miss Xiao is in a very bad situation, so I hurriedly asked several misses of Duke Xing's mansion to go there. 2nd Miss Xiao has already arrived, and now only 5th Miss Xiao is waiting. Please go there quickly, 5th Miss Xiao. The guard said sincerely. How could the guards in the imperial palace be ordered by anyone? Moreover, there would be some disputes when the time came. Smart people would not get involved in such a thing. What? Are you afraid that I will tell my uncle that someone secretly mobilized the guards with unknown intentions? Chu Luqin smiled more and more amiably. The handsome young master, who was as beautiful as jade, exuded a warm light. Anyone who saw him would think that he was very easy to talk to and also an extremely gentle person. Hearing this, the guard broke out in a cold sweat all over, and his face changed dramatically. His fingers convulsed and shrank. Secretly mobilizing the guards with unknown intentions was enough to make the guards present not only die without a burial place, but also kill all the 9 generations of the guards. The emperor had higher requirements for the loyalty of the guards. If there was a little mistake, he would immediately deal with it, and he would cut the weeds at the roots without hesitation. Moreover, these words were said by Prince Chen. As the guards of the emperor, they still knew how much the emperor valued Prince Chen. Sometimes it even made people think that Prince Chen was the biological son of the emperor. The degree of the emperor's attention was not just superficial as the rumors outside said. Anyway, Chu Luqin did not have a long life, and the emperor only needed to pretend to get rid of him. Plop, plop, several guards all knelt down. Your Highness, I dare not. I really just helped to find someone, and I don't know anything else. The guards were so anxious that their heads were sweating. Even the coldness in winter could not eliminate their nervousness and panic. Why do you kneel down to me? I'm just an idle prince, and I can't manage other things in my current condition. If you kneel down like this, people who don't know will think that I've delayed your official business. Chu Luchen said with a smile. Your Highness, you must be joking. We're just helping. The guards stood up in panic. Even though they had gotten some benefits, they couldn't use their lives to pay for it. If there's nothing else, you can leave. I'm going to take 5th Miss Xiao to see Imperial Grandmother. Chu Luchen waved his hand and smiled. Yes, Your Highness, please. The guards made way for him and dared not stop him. Watching 5th Miss Xiao leave behind Prince Chen, several guards looked at each other and didn't know what to do for a moment. Let's go and report to Prince Shou. Someone suggested. Okay. Everyone felt as if they had been pardoned. When the immortals fought, the little devils suffered. They'd better stay out of it. Chapter 663. Remember in 1 second, 800 mail sign small/say net. This is a wonderful free reading without a pop-up window. What do you mean by being taken to Imperial Grandmother by that invalid? Chu Liuzhou banged the table hard and said angrily. Honored Consort Shu and Chu Luyue were also sitting in the room with gloomy faces. It happened so suddenly that it was different from what they had imagined. Was it a real accident or a plot? If it was really just an accident, it would be fine. But if someone took the opportunity to plot against him, then it would be a big problem. Among the three of them, Chu Liuzhou didn't know the inside story at all, and Chu Luyue knew something about it. Only Honored Consort Shu really did it. At this time, she clenched the handkerchief tightly with her fingers, only felt that her heart was beating rapidly and she was out of breath. Everything was discussed by her and old Madame of Duke Xing's mansion. It could be said that every step was calculated accurately. Even the matter that Chu Luyue and Chu Liuzhou came to have fun was also taken into account. Therefore, the wine offered by the palace was prepared at each tourist spot. With the medicine, no matter where Xiao Wanru drank the wine, she could push it into the river and let the guards save her. Many guards would see it and then let Prince Yu take her away. Xiao Wanru could only be a concubine if she didn't want to. Rui, and great elder princess, was good at making trouble, so was concubine Da. She would definitely not allow Xiao Wanru to be Princess Zhou. A concubine, it would be very easy to manipulate her in the future. So what if she was a side concubine? However, Honored Consort Shu did not expect that it was Xiao Yanru who fell into the river. How could she explain it to old Madame of Duke Xing's mansion? Why did things change? She was inexplicably shocked. She had planned to ask Chu Liuzhou to ask the guards to stop Xiao Wanru, bring her here by force, and put the blame on her. However, she met Chu Luchen again. How could it be so coincidental? Did Chu Luchen hear something? Thinking of Chu Luchen, Honored Consort Shu's palms were sweating. Others didn't know how terrible this child was, but she did. She had always hated Chu Luchen and wished that she could get rid of him. However, Chu Luchen, who was loved by the Empress Dowager and the Emperor, was not someone who could be harmed by anyone even if he was sick all the time. At that time, when Chu Luchen was taking an afternoon nap in the palace, she deliberately sent a beautiful little palace maid to Chu Liuchen's bed. The little palace maid was beautiful, and it was not easy for her to choose her. Her purpose was to frame Chu Luchen. That afternoon, Honored Consort Shu would never forget that she was invited over. In front of her, this little palace maid who only had a slight connection with her was skinned. When that beautiful face was sent to her, Honored Consort Shu fainted from fright. After that, whenever she saw Chu Liuchen's figure from afar, she would vomit and feel disgusted. They would even feel a pain in their hearts, as if something had been heavily blocked. How old was he at that time? Was he 12 years old or 11 years old? That pair of ruthless and cold eyes calmly watched as the beautiful little beauty who had climbed onto his bed was skinned in front of everyone. At that time, his smile was actually as gentle as jade, as if he was an elegant young man who had walked out of a painting. The reason why the little palace maid entered the palace was related to honored consort Shu, but honored consort Shu had not let anyone find out about this relationship. Even so, when dealing with this palace maid, Chu Luchen still invited her over by force. After that, although the emperor reprimanded Chu Luchen, it was not painful. Since then, honored consort Shu no longer dared to deal with Chu Luchen openly, nor did she dare to deal with the people around him. But now Xiao Wanru was different. She only said that the Empress Dowager was interesting, and Chu Luchen didn't say anything. Could it be that she couldn't deal with Chu Luchen, and she couldn't even deal with the people around Chu Luchen? Sitting there with cold hands and feet, honored consort Shu felt hatred and despair. Why did her son die so early? Why did that bitch's son not only survive but also restrain her in every way? She was not convinced. She was not reconciled. Your Highness, Your Highness. A voice came into her ears, finally pulling honored consort Shu back from a kind of demonized darkness. What is it? Honored consort Shu tried to look calm and asked. Your Highness, what should we do now? First Miss Xiao, can only marry Commandery Prince Qing now? Chu Luyue asked with a little melancholy. Chu Liuzhou's face immediately turned livid. He had been determined to get Xiao Yenru and had long regarded her as his. Now she was going to fall into Chu Qing's hands, which made him really angry. It seems that we can only do this now. Ask the guards to report it to the Empress. Honored consort Shu slightly relaxed her hands to calm the sweat in her palms. It's my fault. Why did I let the misses of Duke Xing's mansion come to the imperial palace together? I will also go to the Empress to ask for forgiveness later. Honored consort Shu sighed and said. She had to bear some consequences for this matter. Otherwise, Chu Luchen, the madman, might do something. She did not dare to test Chu Liuchen's bottom line. If it got out of hand, it would not be good for Xiao Yenru, but it seemed that they could only do this now. Chu Liuzhou stood up angrily and snorted. Without even saying goodbye, he turned around and strode out. He had to discuss it with his mother and see how to solve this matter. He really did not want to give up Duke Xing's support. But Chu Qing was also his cousin. His father would not allow him and Chu Qing to fight for a woman, let alone a woman who had lost her reputation. I'm afraid that my second brother is really angry. Originally, my second brother and first Miss Xiao were childhood sweethearts. Chu Luyue politely expressed his apology to honored consort Shu on behalf of Chu Liuzhou. It doesn't matter. At this time, no one will have an easy time. Let's go to the Empress's place together. Honored consort Shu was also full of panic at this time. How could she be in the mood to argue with Chu Liuzhou's rudeness? Moreover, Chu Liuzhou was the legitimate son of the Empress. Even if he was a little rude, she could not say anything. Yes, Your Highness. Chu Luyue looked calm and was also respectful to honored consort Shu. He stood aside and waited for honored consort Shu to walk past him before he followed her. When the living room became quiet, Xiao Jia came out of the inner room timidly. Looking at the empty living room, she frowned tightly. Having come to this point, she did not know what to do now. When Prince Yu and Prince Zhou came just now, she hurried forward to call for help, because she wanted the two princes to help her. Otherwise, Madame of Duke Xing and Xiao Yenru would definitely vent their anger on her. Even if they did not know that she had pushed Xiao Yenru, they would never forgive her easily. However, the two princes only had Xiao Yenru in their eyes and didn't stop for her. They just asked about the scene at that time and then ignored her. Thinking of this, he felt as if 10,000 ants were crawling in his heart. He was filled with hatred and jealousy. Xiao Yenru was the daughter of Duke Xing. Her life was so worthless while Xiao Yenru's life was so good. Even if something happened this time, Xiao Yenru could not escape the title of Commandery Prince Qing, and she couldn't get a good marriage even if she tried her best. Miss. The maid, Liu Xiang, gently tugged at her. He tugged at the corner of her clothes and said in a low voice, "Young miss, eldest miss has woken up and is asking you to come over." She woke up. Xiao Jia was shocked and her face turned pale. "Yes, I just woke up. Shuqi is talking with her. I heard that miss is here. Please come in." Liu Xiang became more timid. Xiao Jia felt cold and hot at the same time. She didn't know how to deal with Xiao Yanru now. "Miss, please go in quickly. First miss is very angry now," Liu Xiang said in a low voice. Xiao Jia gritted her teeth. After calming down, she turned and walked inside. She had to go in and talk about it with Xiao Yanru. Otherwise, when she arrived at Duke Xing's mansion, she would have to say the same thing. It was better to make it clear now than to talk about it after returning to the mansion. At least now Xiao Yanru was alone without the shrewd madam by her side. On the bed in the inner room, Xiao Yanru's face was pale and bloodless. She looked at Xiao Jia, who came in, with her eyes fierce and sharp. She had long lost her former bearing and dignity. Seeing Xiao Jia timidly walk to the bed, she clenched her hands in front of her and called in a low voice, "Big sister." "Pa!" A hard slap made Xiao Jia stagger and hit the table on the side. Liu Xiang screamed and hurriedly went to help her. The master and the maid were knocked back a few steps before they managed to stand still. "Tell me, what's going on?" Xiao Yanru asked with a gloomy face. "Big sister. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. You asked me to find Xiao Wanru, so I did. But I saw Prince Yu, Prince Shou, and Commandery Prince Qing coming after me after taking a few steps. I hurriedly came back to tell you about it. I didn't expect to see you squeezing out between the pillars of the pavilion and falling into the lake when I entered the door." I shouted anxiously, and then Commandery Prince Qing jumped into the water. Xiao Jia threw herself in front of the bed and burst into tears. "Big sister. I don't know what's wrong with you. Why did you suddenly fall into the lake? It only lasted for a short while. When I came in again, something happened to you. Big sister, what's going on with you?" Xiao Jia cried more sadly. She threw her hands in front of Xiao Yanru, looking panicked and scared, and her teeth were chattering. Her face was full of tears, and she had no time to care that her makeup was ruined. "Xiao Jia, do you think I'm gullible?" Xiao Yanru said with a gloomy smile. She held the quilt tightly with one hand and then slowly let go of it. The smooth silk thread on the quilt was caught by her. The gorgeous color and material were caught by the thread, making it a mess. The blue veins on the back of her hands stood out. "Big sister. I don't dare. I really don't know what's going on. Big sister, did you fall into someone's trap? Otherwise, how could something like this happen to you? Big sister, do you remember what happened at that time?" I was terrified at that time. The three princes and I all saw the scene where you fell into the lake. Xiao Jia was really terrified. She tried her best to explain for herself with trembling lips. She bet that Xiao Yanru, who she saw at that time, was not in a clear state of mind. Otherwise, she would not have been pushed into the lake without any reaction at that time. Chapter 664. Complete. The latest chapter of the Crown Princess's medical skills was updated as soon as possible. Xiao Wanru. Xiao Yanru gritted her teeth and made a cracking sound. She waved her hand, grabbed Jia's hair, and pulled it down hard, as if what she was holding was Xiao Wanru's long hair, which she hated the most. She spat out a mouthful of evil fire on Xiao Wanru. Xiao Jia screamed in pain and hurriedly reached out to hold her head. A strand of her long bloody hair was pulled out. Xiao Yanru leaned back and threw away the long hair in her hand like garbage. Seeing Xiao Jia fall on the ground in pain, she felt relieved. Even if it was not Xiao Jia's fault, she would not let Xiao Jia off. Xiao Jie's words just now reminded her that her previous state was obviously not right. She still remembered that after Xiao Jie went out, she drank up the wine in her hand in anger. In the carriage that day, Xiao Wanru's teacup was smeared with a cloth with medicine, but there was nothing wrong with her teacup. There was nothing wrong with the tea. The same tea was poured into different teacups, of course, the result was different, but the two teacups were the same. After drinking the wine, she lost a part of her memory and felt dizzy and didn't know where she was. Wasn't it the state of the effect of the medicine that her grandmother told her? She asked Xiao Jie to find Xiao Wanru. No matter where Xiao Wanru drank the wine, she would have an accident. Unexpectedly, Xiao Wanru was fine, but she was in trouble. Xiao Wanru must have exchanged her teacup in the carriage when she was not paying attention. In addition to taking a few sips at the beginning, she took a few more sips later. It must be like this. Her teeth were about to pierce into her flesh. Xiao Wanru, she would never let her off. Where is honored consort Shu? After taking a deep breath and suppressing the rolling hatred in her heart, Xiao Yanru asked. Shuqi stood aside, trembling with fear. Just now, when Xiao Yanru hit Xiao Jie and pulled Xiao Jie's hair, she didn't dare to lean forward. She knew that if her master didn't vent her anger, the servants around them would suffer. Honored consort Shu, Prince Yu, and Prince Zhou all went to the Empress's palace to discuss something. Shuqi reported. Although she was inside just now, she could still hear some of the voices outside. Xiao Yanru took a deep breath, told herself to calm down, and asked with a cold look, where is Chu Qing? Just now, Shuqi had told her that it was Chu Qing who jumped down to save her. But she didn't dare to tell her that some guards had also watched and even helped her. Early, Commandery Prince Qing. Then he was sent away by honored consort Shu, who told him to go back to his mansion and wait for the news. There are no clothes for him in the palace. Shuqi reported cautiously. How useless you are. Xiao Yanru said with hatred. How could she not hate them? She was destined to be the empress in the future. Whether it was Chu Luyue or Chu Liuzhou, she was confident that she could make them send her to a high position. Not only her, but also Duke Xing's mansion behind her would attract their attention and be valued. But now all of this was ruined by Xiao Wanru. The hatred in her heart was like venom. If Xiao Wanru appeared in front of her at this time, she would definitely ask someone to beat Xiao Wanru to death at all costs. She didn't believe that Rui, a great elder princess, would ask her to pay for Xiao Wanru's death in the name of framing her. So what if great elder princess had a noble identity? She was the eldest lineal daughter of Duke Xing's mansion, and the whole Duke Xing's mansion would protect her. What's more, with the testimonies of honored consort Shu, Chu Luyue, and Chu Liuzhou, it didn't matter if Xiao Wanru died. Could the next situation be worse than now? Where is Xiao Wanru? Thinking of this, Xiao Yanru asked sharply. This. I heard that no one has found her. Shuqi stammered. So many people have failed to find her. You are all useless. Xiao Yanru was almost crazy at this time. She even scolded Chu Luyue, Chu Liuzhou, and even honored consort Shu. After so many years of planning, she had waited for so long, and even made herself an old girl in the capital city. The situation was becoming more and more obvious. Her father also said that the situation would be clear in a year and a half, but at this time, such a thing happened to her. If she had waited a little longer, she would have been able to ascend to a high position, but at the most critical moment, she failed. This feeling was even more hateful than having never thought about it. She felt as if her heart was being twisted by a knife. How could she not hate Xiao Wanru? Not only Xiao Wanru, but also Xiao Jie are in front of her. Of course, she hated Xiao Wanru the most. Go find her and bring her here. I'll torture her to death. Xiao Yanru's eyes were stained with red madness, and she suddenly burst out in a voice that was almost hoarse. A strand of Xiao Jie's hair was torn off, and she rolled around in pain. At this moment, she was also frightened by Xiao Yanru's sharp and desperate voice, so she did not dare to make any more sound. She hugged her head and curled up in the corner with her maid, shivering. Miss, this is the Imperial Palace. You should wake up first. There will be plenty of opportunities to deal with the fifth miss in the future. You need to calm down now and see what to do next. Shuqi struggled to persuade her. There will be a chance. What chance do I have? I want to marry Chu Qing, the most useless Chu Qing, the son of the former emperor. He doesn't know whether he can survive. The legitimate son of the former emperor is still on the way to fight for his life, but he just said that he is the son of the former emperor. He is crazy about wealth. Xiao Yanru scolded loudly. At this time, she was like a mad dog, scolding whoever she caught. She hated Chu Qing deeply. Whether it was Chu Luyue or Chu Liuzhou, she had at least half of the hope. But if it was Chu Qing, what hope did he have? He was the son of the former emperor, who was useless and had been locked up in the Yuhui nunnery before. What qualification did he have to marry her? What was the use of him in the future? However, it was precisely this person who had carried him out of the water in front of everyone. And now, even the news couldn't be kept under wraps. She was not reconciled to it. She was really not reconciled to it. Her future, everything she had in the future, her position as the motherly model of the country, and the ambiguous relationship between Chu Luyue and Chu Liuzhou would all end in this scheme. How could she not hate it? First miss. First miss, you may have a chance, to say that Prince Yu, or Prince Zhou, they saved you, then it will be enough. Shuqi, who was scared by her stare and couldn't even speak, began to talk nonsense. If such a first miss returned to the mansion, how could she, the servant girl who followed her, survive? Shuqi just said that. Unexpectedly, Xiao Yanru's crazy eyes softened strangely. Although her face was still gloomy, there was no madness in her eyes anymore. Where is Prince Yu? Go and ask Prince Yu to come here. Xiao Yanru gritted her teeth and said. Compared with Chu Liuzhou, she preferred Chu Luyue. So what if Chu Liuzhou was the legitimate son of the empress? In terms of scheming, Chu Liuzhou was definitely not as scheming as Chu Luyue. She had maintained an ambiguous relationship with Chu Liuzhou and Chu Luyue. They had been writing to each other in private, so she knew a lot about them. Scheming was one aspect. On the other hand, Chu Liuyue's letters seemed to be more affectionate than Chu Liuzhou's, while Chu Liuzhou almost never replied to her. Even if he replied, it was just a few simple words, and she couldn't see how much affection there was in it. In this way, Chu Luyue was much more reliable than Chu Liuzhou, and he was more affectionate than Chu Liuzhou. After sending Shuqi out, Xiao Yanru's eyes fell on Xiao Jia, who was hiding in the corner. She smiled slightly and said, "Second sister, do you want to make amends for your mistakes?" Big sister. I really don't know anything. I really. Xiao Jia rolled and crawled over with tears all over her face. Come here. Xiao Yanru smiled gently and reached out to gently hold Xiao Jia's hand. Xiao Jia's hand seemed to touch the tongue of a poisonous snake. She shivered all over and couldn't even say a word. Tears fell down her cheeks and she looked at Xiao Yanru helplessly. In the Empress Dowager's Palace of Benevolent Peace, Chu Luqian was sitting in a wheelchair, Xiao Wanru was sitting on a chair on one side, and the Empress Dowager was sitting among them with a smile on her face. Chen, you are much better today. I didn't expect you to come to see me. Imperial Grandmother, I'm fine now. It seems that I'm better than before. Could it be that the medicine I've taken recently is effective? Chu Luqian said with a soft smile. The well-behaved and picturesque handsome young man made the Empress Dowager very happy and nodded repeatedly. It's great that you can recover. Your imperial uncle and I have been waiting for this day for too long. The Empress Dowager said with tears about to fall down. She turned her head and wiped her tears with a handkerchief, and her eyes turned red. Nanny Wei hurriedly came over and comforted her. What's wrong with you, Empress Dowager? Shouldn't you be happy? Shouldn't you be happy that Prince Chen is going to get better? Why are you sad? That's right. The Empress Dowager was so excited that her voice was about to break, and she hurriedly wiped her tears with a handkerchief. Imperial Grandmother, I'm really going to recover. I will definitely be filial to you in the future. You should be happy. Don't cry, otherwise I will feel guilty. Chu Luchen said softly with a gentle smile in his eyes, which were like two curves of clear spring water, making people's hearts soften. Xiao Wanru looked at the gentle and well-behaved young man speechlessly. He was completely different from the Prince Chen in her memory of the last life. He was too good at pretending. Empress Dowager, the Empress, Prince Shou, and honored consort Shu are here. A palace maid came in and reported. Why do they come at this time? Just tell them that I'm not feeling well and won't see them. The Empress Dowager frowned and said unhappily. This was the first time that Chu Luchen had come to the imperial palace to see her after his injury. Why did the Empress come at this time? As for honored consort Shu, she was directly ignored by the Empress Dowager. Xiao Wanru's watery eyes moved, and there was a trace of deepness at the bottom of her eyes. Chu Luyue, who should also be here, was not here. Where else would he go at this time? As one of the parties, shouldn't he appear with the Empress and Prince Shou? She subconsciously turned her watery eyes to Chu Luchen, only to see that Chu Luchen also happened to turn around with a lazy smile. He reached out and knocked on the back of his chair. His handsome eyes met Xiao Wanru's beautiful eyes, and then he smiled slightly. He said something to Xiao Xuanzi behind him, and then Xiao Xuanzi left quietly. Xiao Wanru breathed a sigh of relief. Chapter 665. Remember in 1 second, 800 mail sign small/say net. This is a wonderful free reading without a pop-up window. Your Highness, save me. Seeing Chu Luyue come in, Xiao Yanru raised her tear-stained face and looked at Chu Luyue sadly. She stood up from the brocade stool with a frightened and helpless look. Her lips trembled and she twisted the handkerchief in her hand tightly. I don't want to marry Commandery Prince Qing. I want to marry. She didn't finish her sentence, but the meaning in her words and the affection in her eyes made it clear who she wanted to marry. As she spoke, she covered her eyes with the handkerchief in her hand. She was as beautiful as jade and so affectionate. It really made one's heart ache. Chu Luyue came over and reached out to hold her in his arms. He gently patted her back and comforted her softly. Don't worry. I know. At this time, he really regretted that he didn't jump down directly and only paid attention to Chu Liuzhou. However, he didn't expect that Chu Qing dared to be so delusional and let him take advantage of the loophole. Now the matter had become so serious. He wanted to make up for it later, so he asked honored consort Shu to send the guards to find Xiao Wanru. However, they met Chu Luchen again and failed to bring her back. He frowned tightly. Duke Xing's mansion was a great help. It would be a great loss to lose such a help. Your Highness, I don't want to marry Commandery Prince Qing. If I marry him, I'd rather die. Xiao Yanru cried and choked with sobs. Your Highness, can you think of a way and say that you saved me? Even being a concubine in Prince Yu's mansion is better than marrying into Commandery Prince Qing's mansion. Your Highness, please save me. Chu Luyue frowned more tightly and thought of something. He had never thought of this idea before. He only wanted to let the fifth miss of the Xiao's mansion take the blame for Xiao Yanru falling into the water. What would happen if he took the blame for Chu Qing? Thinking of the series of consequences that would be caused if he used Chu Qing to save Xiao Yanru, Chu Luyue immediately dismissed this possibility in his heart. He couldn't ruin things because of Xiao Yanru. If he could really hide all the things about Xiao Yanru, it would be fine. But how could he cover up so many people and things? If he couldn't, it would inevitably be spread to his father's ears. If someone deliberately said in front of his father that he did it because of Duke Xing, it would not be a good thing for him. Honored consort Shu might stand on her side and help her cover up the lie, but what about Chu Liuzhou? Chu Liuzhou and the empress behind him would definitely push the blame to her and put her in a passive position. This was different from putting the blame on Xiao Wanru. He knew that Chu Liuzhou also took a fancy to Duke Xing's mansion and wanted to let Chu Liuzhou marry Xiao Wanru. Xiao Yanru would definitely hide the truth for Xiao Yanru if he could. Neither he nor Chu Liuzhou wanted to see Xiao Yanru marry Chu Qing, so they would push the blame to Xiao Wanru if they could. If someone took the blame for Xiao Yanru falling into the water, Xiao Yanru could get away. Even if there were some rumors, they were just suspicions. Since he, Chu Liuzhou, and honored consort Shu had said so, Xiao Wanru couldn't get away even if she wanted to. But in the current situation, he didn't dare to agree. Seeing the hesitation in Chu Liuyue's eyes, Xiao Yanru was so anxious that her tears fell more and more. She looked at Chu Liuyue pitifully and said, "Just now, second sister said that she was willing to take the blame, but I think second sister's reputation is also very important. I can't ruin second sister's reputation. If your highness can accept this, even if I follow you without a name, it can be regarded as fulfilling my lifelong love. Your highness, save me. Since I was a child, I have admired you." Xiao Yanru cried incoherently. Obviously, she was extremely sad and desperately wanted to escape, but she was still worried about her sister's reputation. She said that she did it for herself and for her sister, which was really attractive. Xiao Yanru was a kind and dignified girl, who was so beautiful and had the background of Duke Xing's mansion. Moreover, Chu Liuyue had originally wanted to choose her. How could he not be tempted at this time? Looking at the beauty's red eyes, he sighed softly and said, "Since your second sister is willing to take the blame, let her take the blame. Let second sister." Xiao Yanru raised her head in horror and looked at Chu Liuyue sadly. But second sister's reputation, her reputation can't compare with yours. Moreover, it's her blessing that she can marry Chu Qing now. After all, it's Commandery Prince Qing's mansion, which is more than 1 or 2 points higher than ordinary families. Reminded by Xiao Yanru, Chu Liuyue felt that this was a good idea. He had seen Xiao Jia several times. She was an inconspicuous daughter of a concubine. Although she was good-looking, she was just a so-so. He had seen countless beauties, and there were at least 1,000 beauties like Xiao Jia. What's more, she was a daughter of a concubine. But... Xiao Yanru was still hesitating. She looked at Chu Liuyue in panic, as if she had been frightened and didn't know what to do now. This kind of panic and helplessness, coupled with her beautiful eyes, which were full of tears, could make men feel pity for her the most. Chu Liuyue reached out to pat her on the back and comforted her softly. "I'll arrange it. It's good for both you and her. I'll listen to you, your highness, but second sister can't be wronged." Xiao Yanru sobbed helplessly. Her status may not be enough, but it's good to be a concubine. After all, it's Commandery Prince Qing's mansion. Seeing that she cared so much about her sister, Chu Liuyue felt that he had to make things clear. If it was Xiao Yanru, she would definitely be the concubine of Commandery Prince Qing. But if it was Xiao Jia, who had lost her reputation, it would be good for her to be a concubine. Duke Xing had always been cautious, so he definitely did not dare to ask for a high position for Xiao Jia. The eldest daughter of lineal descent was the princess of a prince, and the daughter of a concubine could also be the princess of a commandery prince. Even if Duke Xing did not intend to do anything, it would inevitably arouse the emperor's suspicion. In fact, Chu Liuyue also thought so. Since he planned to marry Xiao Yanru, he did not want Duke Xing's mansion to be too conspicuous. He would not care that Xiao Jia had no status in Commandery Prince Qing's mansion. "It's all up to you, your highness." Xiao Yanru sobbed and asked Shuqi to go next door to invite Xiao Jia over. Seeing Xiao Jia, coming over, she immediately hugged Xiao Jia, and burst into tears. She kept apologizing, second sister. Second sister. I'm sorry. Big sister, you're welcome. I've always been taken care of by you. It doesn't matter even if it's for you. As long as you're happy, Jia, can do anything. I don't care about anything. Xiao Jia, also cried and said nicely. Looking at the affectionate look of the two sisters, Chu Luiyue felt very good. Xiao Jia, was willing to bear this matter, which was much better than forcing her. He had been a little hesitant at first, but after hearing what Xiao Jia said to Xiao Yanru, he became firm. Since she had made up her mind, Xiao Jia naturally had to pretend to fall into the water. She wet her hair, changed her clothes, and then wet her previous clothes. It happened suddenly. At that time, the guards saw the woman falling into the water, and then the woman was rescued by Chu Qing. The appearance of falling into the water was always a little different from that of usual. In panic and fear, it was okay for her to look different for a while. Chu Liuzhou and honored consort Shu immediately sent someone to inform them. Since such a thing had happened to Xiao Yanru in the imperial palace, honored consort Shu could hardly absolve herself from the guilt. If she put the blame on Xiao Jia, she would bear less responsibility. One was the eldest daughter of lineal descent, and the other was the second daughter of a concubine. Chu Liuzhou wanted to marry Xiao Yanru, so of course, he would not let Xiao Yanru lose her reputation and marry Chu Qing. As for Chu Qing, Chu Luiyue planned to ask honored consort Shu to send someone to tell him about it. In addition, with Chu Liuzhou's opinion, Chu Qing was also smart. He would never risk offending Chu Liuzhou, and honored consort Shu by saying that the person he saved was Xiao Yanru. After making the arrangement, Chu Luiyue left Xiao Yanru's room and went to the Empress Dowager's place. After discussing with them, they decided to go to the Empress Dowager's place to explain the matter. Seeing Chu Luiyue leave the room, the pitiful look on Xiao Yanru's face immediately disappeared. She reached out to push away Xiao Jia, who still wanted to maintain a close sisterly relationship with her. She patted her sleeves and said coldly, "After you marry into Commandery Prince Qing's mansion, don't forget my kindness." "Thank you, big sister." Xiao Jia, took 2 steps back, wiped her tears with a handkerchief and said. At this time, she really thanked Xiao Yanru sincerely. She didn't expect that she would marry into Commandery Prince Qing's mansion. Becoming the wife of Commandery Prince Qing was a good thing that she had never thought of before. Seeing Xiao Yanru pull out her hair like crazy, Xiao Jia, was both regretful and afraid that she couldn't escape. Unexpectedly, things took a turn. Xiao Yanru let her bear the reputation of being saved and let her marry into Commandery Prince Qing's mansion. This was not a good thing for Xiao Yanru, but it was definitely a great thing for Xiao Jia. For this, she could do anything for Xiao Yanru. Do you know what to say? Xiao Yanru glanced at her with disdain and raised the corner of her mouth mockingly. She was just a daughter of a concubine, and she actually dared to dream about the position of Commandery Prince Qing's mansion's princess. She didn't know whether she was qualified or not. She was going to marry Xiao Jia, but now she had to marry Xiao Jia. Chu Qing probably wanted to strangle her to death. She thought that she had got a big bargain. How stupid she was. Don't worry, big sister. Jia knows what to say. I will never get you into trouble. Xiao Jia gritted her teeth and expressed her loyalty. Before Chu Luiyue came, Xiao Yanru had arranged everything. She had been friends with Chu Luiyue for a long time, so she certainly knew that it was impossible for Chu Luiyue to admit it. Therefore, the second best result was to let Xiao Jia take the responsibility. In this case, get ready. The Empress Dowager will definitely come to summon you later. Xiao Yanru said. Yes, big sister. I'll get ready now. Please teach me how to say it later. Xiao Jia nodded repeatedly. With such a good marriage, she could do anything at this time. Chapter 666. The second miss of Duke Xing's mansion fell into the lake. Was it Commandery Prince Qing who saved her? Hearing the Empress's words, the Empress Dowager frowned. After all, this kind of thing was not very dignified. She knew Xiao Jia. At the beginning, she wanted her to be Chen Er's concubine. Unexpectedly, her reputation was ruined. Xiao Wanru lowered her head, looked at the table in front of her calmly, and listened quietly to the Empress's report to the Empress Dowager. There was a trace of deep sarcasm in her eyes. Xiao Yenru had intended to let her bear the reputation. Now that she was gone, she would let Xiao Jia bear it. Xiao Jia might think that she had got a good marriage, but how could it be so easy to get Chu Qing's marriage? He was the son of the former emperor. Even if it was not the former emperor who was in power now, he, as the son of the former emperor, must be treated well. It was impossible for him to marry a daughter of a concubine with a bad reputation. Although Chu Qing was an idle prince with no power, in order to show his kindness, the emperor must let him marry a daughter of a noble family. Xiao Jia was not suitable, and it would even make people think that someone had schemed against Chu Qing. It could be foreseen that even if she entered Commandery Prince Qing's mansion, her status would not be high. She would even be treated coldly because Chu Qing could not marry Xiao Yenru, who he liked. If she really entered Commandery Prince Qing's mansion, Xiao Jia's fate could be imagined. She didn't care about Xiao Jia. Originally, Xiao Jia didn't treat her as a sister and even helped Xiao Yenru plot against her. However, even if Xiao Jia really took Xiao Yenru's name today, she would not let Xiao Yenru get away unscathed. There was a flash of hostility in her eyes and then it disappeared. Xiao Jia's status is not high enough. The emperor has said that he will decide Chu Qing's marriage. He will select a few girls from the consort selection this time and send them to Commandery Prince Qing's mansion. The Empress Dowager said unhappily. Then let Xiao Jia become a nun. Chu Luchen raised his eyebrows and said indifferently. In this case, if she couldn't enter Commandery Prince Qing's mansion, she could only live in seclusion. You child. It's always a woman's fate. How can it be ruined like this? The Empress Dowager scolded jokingly. But now uncle means that Commandery Prince Qing can't marry her. What should we do? Chu Luchen spread his hands and said helplessly. Let's go to Commandery Prince Qing's mansion, but the title. Empress Dowager thought for a while and said. No matter what, Xiao Jia was the daughter of Duke Xing's concubine. It was too much to ruin her. Besides, no one was willing to do this. But why did she fall into the lake? Empress, did anyone interfere in this matter? Empress Dowager didn't hide it and asked the Empress directly. I don't think so. Prince Yu, Prince Shou, and Commandery Prince Qing are going to enjoy the scenery today, so they specially asked people to put some fruits, snacks, tea, and wine on the way. They thought that if they were tired, they could stop and rest for a while, enjoy the scenery of the lake, and drink and chat merrily. The second miss of the Xiao's mansion fell into the water in one of the pavilions. At that time, she was alone. The first miss of the Xiao's mansion was going to find the fifth miss. The Empress thought for a while and said. This accident had been transferred to Xiao Jia, so what Xiao Jia had done before had become Xiao Yenru's. Why did you find the fifth Miss Xiao? Empress Dowager looked at Xiao Wanru, who was sitting there obediently with her head down, and asked in surprise, are the sisters of Duke Xing's mansion so close to each other? Old Madam of Duke Xing's mansion and Rui, and great elder princess had always been at loggerheads with each other. At that time, Xiao Wanru was forced to go to the Yuhui nunnery by the whole Duke Xing's mansion. Duke Xing's mansion might say something else about this matter, but how could the Empress Dowager not know the truth? It was just that her words were really rude. The Empress was stunned, and then carefully looked at the Empress Dowager's face. Seeing that the Empress Dowager's face was not bad, she turned to Chu Luchen, who looked even better. With a lazy smile on his face, he looked gentle and harmless. However, When his eyes met the Empress's, there was a trace of darkness in his eyes, as if there was a cold and sharp sword light passing through his eyes. The Empress Dowager subconsciously looked away. She moved her eyes to Xiao Wanru, who was beside her. Looking at Xiao Wanru's beautiful face, the Empress smiled and asked softly, "Fifth Miss Xiao, do you know why the first Miss Xiao is looking for you?" She couldn't answer this question, but someone else could. After staying in the palace for so long, how could the Empress not know what to say at this time? Although the Empress Dowager's meaning was unclear, her words didn't seem to mean that she was partial to the first Miss Xiao. It could be seen that the Empress Dowager didn't appreciate the first Miss of Xiao's mansion. Thinking about the Empress Dowager's words carefully, she actually implied that Xiao Yanru deliberately said something to whitewash the piece, so the Empress could only deal with it carefully. Xiao Wanru raised her eyes. It was unexpected but also expected that the Empress Dowager would ask her to answer this question. She immediately smiled softly and shook her head. "I don't know why the big sister is looking for me. I was in the pavilion with my second sister before, but I felt a little stuffy there, so I casually walked on the waterside pavilion. When I walked out, I saw the big sister from a distance. She should have also seen me. I wanted to walk a little longer before going back, so I didn't look back. I don't know why the big sister is looking for me. Go and invite the two misses of Duke Xing's mansion to come over. This kind of thing has to be made clear face to face, so as not to cause any disputes later." Chu Luqin said lazily. His slender fingers gently tapped on the railing of the chair, as if he was trying to relieve the Empress Dowager's worries. "That's right." Honored consort Shu finally had a chance to speak. She pinched her handkerchief and nodded to agree. "Then go and invite them." The Empress Dowager nodded and said loudly. Immediately, a palace maid came over and bowed to the Empress Dowager and left. At this time, a eunuch came in and reported, "Empress Dowager, Prince Yu is here. Invite him in." The Empress Dowager said. Chu Luyue came in after the eunuch. He first bowed to the Empress Dowager, then greeted the Empress and honored consort Shu, and then his two brothers. When he sat down beside Chu Liuzhou, he subconsciously looked at the other party. When he bowed just now, he had already seen someone opposite him. It seemed that she was the fifth miss of Duke Xing's mansion. He raised his eyes and saw a beautiful face. Even though she still lowered her head, he could see her long and curly eyelashes, and then slightly lifted her watery eyes, which were full of mist. Xiao Wanru's eyes were originally very clear, but sometimes when she was a little emotional, they became misty, reflecting her jade-like skin and delicate cherry lips. Chu Luyue clenched his hands in his sleeves almost subconsciously, and his heartbeat involuntarily accelerated. He actually saw the woman in the waterside pavilion on the lake again. At that moment, he even thought that he was hallucinating. He unconsciously stared at Xiao Wanru, and the amazement in his eyes almost overflowed. If he hadn't always been good at self-control, he would have stood up immediately at this time. It turned out to be the fifth miss of Duke Xing's mansion. It turned out to be her. 3 years ago, he had also seen Xiao Wanru. At that time, although Xiao Wanru's features were picturesque and exquisite, she was too young to arouse any ripple in his heart. However, he had never expected that Xiao Wanru would make him so amazed 3 years later. She was as beautiful as a painting, as if a fairy in a dream had fallen into the mortal world. The so-called devastatingly beautiful was nothing more than this. Such a beauty was the woman he had been looking forward to, the king of flowers, and the devastatingly beautiful peony in his heart. A cold snort sounded beside him, and the teacup on the table slipped from his slender fingers and fell heavily on the table. The hot tea inside splashed out, and a few drops splashed on Chu Liuyue's hand. The pain made him wake up from his charming thoughts immediately. He hurriedly stood up, took 2 steps back, and looked at Chu Luqin sitting beside him in astonishment. "Big brother, I'm really sorry. I wanted to propose a toast to you with tea instead of wine, but my hand softened just now, and the teacup fell." Chu Luqin slowly wiped his hands with a handkerchief, and then raised his head with an elegant smile. Chu Luyue looked at the teacup near him, and then looked at Chu Luchen, who was not splashed by any water at all. His face darkened. If he couldn't hold the cup properly, he would only drop it in front of him, not in front of the person opposite him. We're brothers, so don't be so polite. Third brother, be careful in the future. If the water scalds you, it's my fault. Chu Liuyue's face was very gentle. He reached out and patted the water accidentally splashed on his clothes calmly. Although he was so angry that he wanted to vomit blood, Chu Liyue had to show his generosity in front of the Empress Dowager. He was very clear about Chu Liuchen's character. If he really dared to talk about this matter, with Chu Liuchen's temperament, he could only listen to him and the Empress Dowager would not stand on his side. Chu Liuzhou looked at Chu Luchen, then looked at Chu Liyue, and finally looked at Xiao Wanru thoughtfully. If marrying Xiao Yenru was valued by the whole Duke Xing's mansion, then marrying Xiao Wanru in front of him would be valued by Great Elder Princess. However, Great Elder Princess could not compare with Duke Xing, so in terms of status, Xiao Yenru was better. It was also a good thing to have such a beauty accompany him. Anyway, Xiao Wanru was still young, so she could be eliminated in the draft. It was not difficult for him to take her into the palace when he got a good position in the future. But what was the matter with Chu Liyue? Could it be that he also liked the beauty in front of him? Although the beauty was good, it was still too insignificant compared with the beautiful country. If Chu Liyue also liked her, he might be able to get some benefits from it. Did you go to the two misses of Xiao's mansion just now? The Empress Dowager did not see the interaction between the brothers and asked. Imperial Grandmother, I was afraid that something would happen to the two misses of Duke Xing's mansion, so I specially went there to have a look. Second Miss Xiao, who fell into the water, was still dressing up. When first Miss Xiao helped to pull second Miss Xiao out of the water just now, her clothes and hair were a little wet, so she was also dressing up. Chu Liyue said with a smile. Xiao Yenru's hair was still wet, so he said this to better explain the reason why her hair was wet. Xiao Wanru's heart skipped a beat. Her long eyelashes fluttered twice, she slowly raised her beautiful eyes and looked at Chu Liyue with a little sadness. He even made a false testimony in front of the Empress Dowager. In the last life, it was him and Xiao Yenru who framed her for the death of the sixth prince. She narrowed her eyes slightly to hide the inadvertent sarcasm at the corner of her mouth. Chapter 667. Remember in 1 second, 800 male sign small/say net Xiao Yenru and Xiao Jia, both looked a little embarrassed when they came in. Xiao Yenru and Xiao Jia, looked a little embarrassed when they came in. However, in comparison, Xiao Jia, looked more embarrassed. Although her hair was tied up, it still looked wet and she didn't even have time to dry it. Xiao Yenru's long hair was basically dry. They had changed their clothes again. Most of them had prepared clothes when they entered the imperial palace. Xiao Yenru came in holding the timid Xiao Jia's hand. She looked gentle and dignified. She was afraid that Xiao Jia would panic, so she kept holding her hand. No matter from which aspect, she looked like a good sister. Xiao Jia had always been timid in front of others. At this time, it was normal for her to be more flustered and scared. Xiao Wanru looked at their tightly held hands calmly, with her eyes as cold as ice. Xiao Yenru was used to showing her decency in front of others. After they met the Empress Dowager together, the Empress Dowager looked at them. After a long while, she said slowly, when second miss fell into the water, the first miss was not around. I heard that she went to find the fifth miss, but why did the first miss go to find the fifth miss? Your Highness, when I came here, I saw that the fifth sister was not there. I was afraid that the fifth sister would disturb the nobles in the palace because she had just entered the palace, so I hurried to find her. I didn't expect that something like this would happen to the second sister. It's all my fault. If I hadn't gone to find the fifth sister, such a thing wouldn't have happened. Xiao Yenru had prepared for it. She lowered her head and said with tears in her eyes. Such a beauty with such a self-reproachful look, coupled with the fact that she cared for her two younger sisters, could make people have a good impression on her. Chu Liuzhou felt that Xiao Yanru in front of him was actually very suitable to be his Princess Zhou. Not only for Duke Xing's mansion, but also for her kind and caring personality, she could also handle the affairs of Prince Zhou's mansion well. She could let him devote himself to the affairs of the imperial court. In this way, although Xiao Wanru was beautiful, she was not suitable for him compared with Xiao Yanru. Big sister, did you come to find me? When I left, I told second sister that I would just walk around. Why are you so worried about me? Xiao Wanru raised her watery eyes and asked calmly. Compared with the two sisters who looked a little panicked, her expression and behavior were much indifferent, and she did not show too much concern for Xiao Jia. Everyone present knew something about Duke Xing's mansion, so they were not surprised that Xiao Wanru and Xiao Yanru couldn't get close to each other. I'm worried about you, Xiao Yanru said softly. Why is big sister always worried about me, but not worried about second sister, who is alone in the pavilion? What's more, I'm an adult now. I don't need big sister's care all the time. When I was in the Yuhui nunnery, big sister also came to care about me again and again. I had a series of accidents in the Yuhui nunnery and almost lost my life in the end. After that, we went to Huaguang Temple. What happened? Big sister even chased us all the way to Huaguang Temple. Xiao Wanru interrupted Xiao Yanru rudely. With her long eyelashes fluttering twice, she said with unspeakable grievance and anger. She should be angry. The series of accidents in the Yuhui nunnery seemed to have happened after Xiao Yanru went to the Yuhui nunnery with her. Nothing happened after staying in the Yuhui nunnery for so long. However, after Xiao Yanru went up the mountain, accidents happened one after another and almost lost her life in the end. No one present knew what had happened in Huaguang Temple, but it seemed that Xiao Yanru had also gone to pester Xiao Wanru. Everyone couldn't help thinking of the word pester. Thinking about these things carefully, it seemed that Xiao Yanru had been pestering Xiao Wanru, and the more she pestered Xiao Wanru, the worse Xiao Wanru's situation was. Fifth sister, I'm really worried about you. I don't mean anything else. Most of the things that happened in the Yuhui nunnery and Huaguang Temple were accidents. If I made you unhappy, I'll apologize to you here. When Xiao Yanru heard that Xiao Wanru actually exposed the veil of warmth between them in front of the Empress Dowager and the Empress, she was very anxious. Fortunately, she reacted quickly and immediately bowed deeply to Xiao Wanru. She looked at Xiao Wanru with 2 lines of tears falling down her cheeks, looking like a pear blossom in the rain, which made people feel sorry for her. The first miss is also concerned about the 5th Mississippi, speaking of which, she has a good intention. 5th miss, don't be too harsh on the first miss. Chu Liuzhou helped Xiao Yanru out of trouble, and his words implied that he was accusing Xiao Wanru of being too narrow-minded. The first miss does care about the 5th Mississippi. When she was in my place, she intended to sit with me for a while. Later, she said that she was worried about the 2 younger sisters and couldn't sit still. When she heard that you were enjoying the scenery there, she hurried over. Unexpectedly, something still happened. Honored Consort Shu said on the side. Both the first miss and the 5th miss are fine. It's a great fortune in misfortune. Second miss, what happened to you? Why did you fall into the lake? The Empress wisely changed the topic. She naturally stood by her son's side. I don't know either. Xiao Jia's tears also fell down. She covered her face with a handkerchief, feeling aggrieved and sad. But her behavior and words revealed another layer of information. Could it be that there was something hidden in it? How could the second miss not know either? Could it be that she suddenly lost consciousness? Chu Liuzhou's face darkened and he said with a frown. I really don't know anything. When I entered the pavilion with the 5th sister, I just drank a cup of wine. At that time, I thought it was tea. After the 5th sister poured it out, I tasted it and found it was not much. Then the 5th sister left. After that, I don't remember anything and I'm a little confused. Big sister came in and asked me. I said that the 5th sister seemed to be a little far away after leaving. I can't remember whether I really said such words to big sister. Xiao Jia reached out to hold her head and said in pain. After drinking a cup of wine poured by Xiao Wanru, all her consciousness began to fade. Chu Liuyue's eyes fell on Xiao Wanru and saw that her face was calm without any fluctuation, as if she didn't know that Xiao Jia's words had tarnished her reputation and even made others think that she had framed Xiao Jia. Her jade-like delicate face was cold but calm, without grievance or anger. Such a serious accusation seemed to be a matter of an outsider to her. This woman was really strange. Second sister, don't talk nonsense. Xiao Yanru's face darkened and she scolded her. I don't know. I really don't know. But, maybe I remembered it wrong. Xiao Jia wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes with a handkerchief and said in a trembling voice. Everyone here was stronger and more powerful than her. As a daughter of a non-lineal lineage, of course, she didn't dare to say anything. Even if it was the truth, she didn't dare to point out Xiao Wanru. She just secretly glanced at Xiao Wanru with a little anger and timidity. She looked like she was angry but didn't dare to say anything. Make it clear. I and the Empress Dowager will make the decision on this matter. The Empress said coldly. Yes, tell me everything. Her Majesty the Empress will naturally uphold justice for you. Chu Luchen leaned against the railing of the chair, looking lazy and a little tired. His eyes were like flowing water, but people could still feel the coldness and majesty hidden in his handsome face. The Empress's face darkened. She was not the most respected person present. She hurriedly said softly to the Empress Dowager, who was sitting in the high seat with a sullen face and said nothing, the Empress Dowager should make the decision on this matter. The Empress is really kind. She is just a daughter of a non-lineage, but she has troubled Imperial Grandmother and the Empress. Even if this daughter of a non-lineage dies, it will be worth it. Chu Luchen said with a faint smile and his eyes fell on Xiao Jia. Xiao Jia subconsciously hid behind Xiao Yanru. She felt that Xiao Yanru's gaze fell on her with an indescribable coldness. However, Xiao Yanru's smile was as gentle as jade without a trace of coldness, but the meaning of her words made her tremble with fear and nervousness. As the rumor said, Prince Chen was temperamental and really regarded human lives as trifles when he was ruthless. The daughter of a non-lineage of Duke Xing's mansion can't be dealt with carelessly. The Empress's smile became a little stiff. Seeing that his mother was at a disadvantage, Chu Liuzhou said coldly, "Third brother, what do you mean? Do you think that mother shouldn't care about this matter?" "Second brother, you must be joking. This matter is originally handled by the Empress." Chu Luchen said with an increasingly leisurely smile, "It's just that Duke Xing's mansion has always been a mess. One moment, they hurt this person, and the next moment, they hurt that person. Even the death of the former heir of Duke Xing had a reason. That day, I heard from my uncle that there was something fishy about it. The former heir of Duke Xing is dead, and his daughter almost lost her life a few days ago. Now it happened again. The first branch of Duke Xing's mansion is really aggrieved. Is it possible that the first branch should die without any descendants?" Chu Luchen looked at Chu Liuzhou and smiled more widely. However, the meaning of his words was not very pleasant. What was more, this matter involved the emperor. Since the emperor said it, it must be true. Even if it was not true, Chu Liuzhou did not dare to disobey and say that there was a problem. Chu Liuzhou gritted his teeth with hatred, but he also knew that he could not continue this topic at this time, so he could only grit his teeth and bear it. If he quarreled with Chu Luchen about this matter again, it must be his fault in the end. From childhood to adulthood, Chu Liuzhou had suffered a lot from Chu Luchen. Everyone thought that he was harmless and an invalid. If they quarreled, it must be his fault. Even his father thought so. Although Chu Liuzhou was arrogant, he was not stupid. He had suffered a lot from Chu Luchen, so he often thought about it several times before talking to Chu Luchen, for fear that Chu Luchen would get hold of a trace of his weakness. It was quiet in the hall for a moment. "Second sister, Do you mean that I gave you a glass of wine, and there was something wrong with the wine, so that you fell into the lake in a daze? Xiao Wanru smiled slightly and took over the topic. Her watery eyes blinked twice, and there was brilliance flowing in them. It reflected thousands of stars, making people feel that it was more and more beautiful. She said it bluntly. For a moment, not only Xiao Jia's face stiffened, but even Xiao Yanru looked at Xiao Wanru in horror. How dare she? Chapter 668. Remember in 1 second, 800 mail sign small/say net. This is a wonderful free reading without a pop-up window. Is that what second sister means? If that's what you mean, I have to ask you something. Xiao Wanru said with a smile, looking confident and not nervous at all. I didn't say. I don't know. Xiao Jia's lips trembled. Seeing that everyone was looking at her, she panicked, especially Chu Liuchen's extremely handsome eyes, which were looking at her with a smile. The words of Prince Chen and Prince Zhou just now rang in Xiao Jia's ears. The way that Prince Chen forced Prince Zhou to be speechless was deeply imprinted in Xiao Jia's mind. The contempt in his words made Xiao Jia extremely terrified. He didn't even give face to Prince Zhou, let alone himself. Xiao Wanru turned to the Empress Dowager and said, "Second sister said that I poured her a glass of wine and she had an accident after drinking it. Empress Dowager, please send someone to check the wine in the pavilion. Is there anything wrong? Even the wine glass must be checked. Someone, bring everything here and let the imperial physician check." This method was very reasonable. The Empress Dowager nodded and ordered coldly. The palace servants had long since retreated in response. They brought people to fetch all the fruits and snacks in the pavilion, as well as the wine and wine cups placed there. Looking at Xiao Wanru, who was quiet and peaceful opposite him, Chu Liuyue's eyebrows suddenly twitched uneasily, and he had a bad feeling. He had asked someone to dispose of the teacup and threw it into the lake. It could be said that he accidentally knocked it when he fell into the lake, so the cup could not be found. Previously, in order to destroy the evidence, he knew a part of the story. But now she felt that the cup was a flaw that existed whether she threw it or not. Xiao Yanru was really stupid this time, which was not like her usual behavior. If she had calmed down now and stopped Xiao Jia from saying such words, it would have been just an accident. She wouldn't have gone to the extent of investigating. But now, what she had done before had become a failure. Chu Luyue naturally knew that the reason why Xiao Jia hinted at Xiao Wanru was Xiao Yanru's intention. A trace of displeasure flashed across his eyes. Xiao Yanru was not such a person in the past. How could she make such a stupid move? Although Chu Luyue was scheming, he was not a woman. He didn't know that Xiao Yanru not only failed to do anything to Xiao Wanru but also lost her reputation because she had been defeated by Xiao Wanru again and again, so that Xiao Yanru's idea of sitting on the fishing platform was ruined. Xiao Wanru had to do the selection in person. Without knowing the final result, she had a 50-50 chance of winning. Speaking of which, it was all because of Xiao Wanru. How could Xiao Yanru not hate him? And this time, Chu Qing was going to destroy her remaining 50%. If she married Chu Qing, she would have no future. How could she be reconciled to this? The hatred in her heart accumulated, making Xiao Yanru lose her usual calmness. This time, she dealt with Xiao Wanru in person for this reason. Now, she asked Xiao Jia to drag Xiao Wanru into trouble for this reason. She wished that Xiao Wanru would die in front of her now and be trampled on by her. The palace maid came back quickly and brought the things to the side hall. An imperial physician had been waiting there for a long time. After the examination, she reported the results to the Empress Dowager. The palace maid came in and reported, "Report to the Empress Dowager, there is nothing unusual about the melons, fruits, snacks, wine in the pot, and wine glasses on the side. They are all ordinary things." Chu Liuyue's eyes relaxed. This was the best result. Imperial grandmother, when I was going to go to the garden with my second brother and Commandery Prince Qing, I specially ordered them to prepare these along the way. I was tired from walking and wanted to sit down and have a chat with my brothers. It's rare that the sun is good today. Chu Luyue stood up with a smile and explained. Wasn't it arranged by Honored Consort Shu? The Empress Dowager turned to Honored Consort Shu, who was quiet aside. Empress, it's not me. I just asked them to walk in the garden and didn't arrange everything with great fanfare. There are too many sisters in the palace who come to enjoy and have fun. Besides, there are several princes. Although Duke Xing's mansion is favored by the emperor, they are the daughters of ministers after all. I'm afraid it's not appropriate to arrange it with great fanfare. Honored Consort Shu also stood up in a hurry, bowed deeply to the Empress Dowager and said. She had to explain clearly that this was originally an accident. It had been arranged before. She originally wanted to make use of various accidents to make Xiao Wanru have an accident. But she didn't expect that it was Xiao Yenru who had an accident, and she didn't expect that it could be blamed on Xiao Jia. Honored Consort Shu really regretted it at this time. If she had known this, she would not have gotten involved in the muddy water of Duke Xing's mansion. She saw that Chu Luchen was uncomfortable and wanted to hurt him to avenge her child. She thought that it was Chu Liuchen's mother who hurt her child, but she also knew that Chu Luchen was not easy to deal with. So she had been forbearing and looking for opportunities for so many years. This time, she thought she had found an opportunity, but she didn't expect to meet such a lousy helper. What did Duke Xing's mansion do? From old madam of Duke Xing's mansion to the Xiao sisters in front of her, everyone was extremely stupid. At this time, they should just make it clear. Why did they imply that Xiao Wanru had ulterior motives and wanted to hurt Xiao Jia, or in secret? Honored Consort Shu and Chu Luyue also thought of the same thing at this time. They both felt that Xiao Yenru's move was superfluous. Not only would it not work, but it would even backfire. After all, they also felt guilty. Xiao Yenru fell into the water, but now Xiao Jia, was the one who took the blame. If they really blamed her, the two of them were also responsible. How many cups are there? Xiao Wanru suddenly asked. There are 3 cups. The palace maid thought for a while and answered. The set of cups in the palace was limited. There were not many sets, and there were usually 4 cups. Xiao Wanru had lived in the palace in her last life, so she knew about it. Since it was prepared early, why didn't they prepare 1 set? Could it be that there are only 3 cups in other places? Xiao Wanru asked with some interest. Just check the others. Maybe Big Brother thought that there were only 3 people, so he asked someone to prepare 3 cups. Chu Luchen interjected lazily. There were many places prepared, and there was no time to remove a cup in other places. It can't be 3 cups. There must be 4 cups. When I asked someone to prepare before, they always prepared a set. Chu Luyue said thoughtfully. Then his eyes suddenly flickered as if he suddenly thought of something. His face changed slightly and he said, there is 1 cup missing. How could there be 1 cup missing? If this matter was revealed by others, it would be more appropriate for him to reveal it himself. Hearing Xiao Wanru mention a few cups, Chu Luyue had already made up his mind. He could not fall into a passive position and had to take the initiative. There is 1 cup missing. Empress Dowager, I didn't touch the cup when I left. I just went to the pavilion for a while and left. What's more, second sister was fine at that time, so I couldn't take a cup away. Second sister said that she drank a cup of wine I poured, but in fact, she didn't. When I was in the pavilion, I didn't pour the wine at all. Even if I poured the wine, I couldn't take the wine away. Xiao Wanru said calmly, as for when I left, I didn't know that Big Sister was here. I didn't see Big Sister until I walked out for a while. If I really put something in the wine and Big Sister didn't come, it would inevitably fall on me. How dare I do such a thing? If she really put something in the wine and Xiao Jia, was fine after drinking it, but something happened after Xiao Yenru came over, it showed that there was something wrong with her words. If she didn't want to frame Xiao Jia, why did she put something in the wine? Since she had put something in the wine, how could nothing happen to Xiao Jia? What was more, Xiao Jia was fine after she left. How could she have the ability to predict the future and know that something would happen to Xiao Jia when Xiao Yanru came over? If Xiao Yanru hadn't had an accident, it would have fallen on Xiao Wanru. Her words sounded very calm, but in fact, they were aggressive. For a moment, it was quiet in the hall, and everyone's eyes fell on Xiao Yanru and Xiao Jia, suspiciously. Could it be that there was really a mystery behind it? Xiao Yanru gnashed her teeth with hatred, but she couldn't tell them that she had drugged Xiao Wanru in the carriage and Xiao Wanru had changed the medicine. She couldn't explain what had happened in front of her clearly, and Xiao Wanru had something on her. How could she not hate it? The venom in the bottom of her heart almost dripped out, but she had to maintain a blank look on her face, as if she had just found out about it. Then she turned to look at Xiao Jia and asked softly, "Second sister, did you remember it wrong?" Xiao Jia was so flustered that she could only look at Xiao Yanru, only to see Xiao Yanru turn around and glare at her fiercely. She immediately came to her senses, crouched down with her hands on her head, and cried, I don't know. I really don't know. I seemed to be very dizzy at that time and couldn't remember anything clearly. It seemed to have happened, but it didn't. Second sister, you don't know whether it's true or not. Don't you know that such words will kill people? Xiao Wanru looked at Xiao Jia, who was anxious and afraid, and said slowly. She looked calm, as if she was talking about someone else's business, but her calm eyes made Xiao Jia more and more afraid. Was the person in front of her really Xiao Wanru, who had been raised in the Yuhui nunnery for 3 years? She never knew that Xiao Wanru was so terrible. She was forcing her to go down the road of death. She was the future princess of Commandery Prince Qing. Even if her big sister had repeatedly told her not to do it, she couldn't hold on at this time. Fifth sister, I'm sorry. I may have wronged you. I have a headache. I've been having a headache since I fell into the water. It's very uncomfortable. Holding her head tightly with her hands, Xiao Jia's painful look made people feel that she was not in a good situation at this moment. She wanted to avoid what she had said before. Empress Dowager, second sister is so uncomfortable. Can you let the imperial physician have a look at her? Xiao Wanru pleaded with the Empress Dowager. The imperial physician had arrived at the side hall just now, and he had not received the Empress Dowager's order to leave at this time. Yes. The Empress Dowager's words made many people present feel nervous. Chapter 669. Remember in 1 second, 800 mail sign small/say net. This is a wonderful free reading without a pop-up window. Xiao Jia, who had been squatting, suddenly felt weak and almost knelt down. Her body trembled involuntarily. An imperial physician? She didn't fall into the water. If the imperial physician discovered anything, she would be finished. Second sister, don't shiver. Is it really cold? Don't be afraid. I'll take you there. Xiao Yanru rushed over, held Xiao Jia, who was shivering, and comforted her. Since it has become like this, we'd better go and have a look as soon as possible. Chu Liuzhou frowned and said coldly. Xiao Yanru half supported and half carried Xiao Jia, whose legs had gone soft, to the side hall with another palace maid and asked the imperial physician to treat her. The result of the imperial physician's pulse examination soon came. Second Miss Xiao was very good and healthy. There was nothing wrong with her, and there was no poison in her body. She seemed to be frightened and her whole body kept trembling. She might have been frightened by falling into the water before. Many people were satisfied with this conclusion. The imperial physician left a prescription and Xiao Jia, stayed in the side hall. Xiao Yanru came back to report to the Empress Dowager and planned to leave. Xiao Yanru was the one who felt uncomfortable. She had been in high spirits and wanted to drag Xiao Wanru into trouble, so she didn't realize it. Now that she knew that Xiao Jia, could no longer drag Xiao Wanru into trouble, and it was good enough for Xiao Jia to admit it. Xiao Yanru's high spirits immediately dissipated. In just a short while, he felt his hands and feet turning cold. She really fell into the water and flopped around for a while. Although she was later rescued, there was still a long distance before she was brought to the warm room on the shore. After such a long distance, she actually felt cold. "Big sister, is she okay?" Xiao Wanru followed her from the side hall and asked in a low voice as she walked. I'm fine. What happened to my second sister also scared me." Xiao Yanru's face darkened. When the imperial physician was treating her just now, she suddenly thought of another thing. At this time, she was in a panic and just wanted to go home and ask the doctor to check whether she had hurt herself. The medicine and wine were very harmful to one's health. Her grandmother seemed to want to say something but stopped on second thought. Based on her understanding of old madam, she was afraid that there was another meaning behind it. Thinking of the other meaning, Xiao Yanru could not calm down at this time. Not only her back but also her hands and feet were cold. Xiao Wanru stood still in the hall, bowed deeply to the Empress Dowager, and said, "Empress Dowager, can you ask the imperial physician to have a look at my big sister? She doesn't seem to be well." Xiao Yanru shook her hands and said with tears in her eyes, No. I'm just scared after thinking of what happened to my second sister just now. Something almost happened to my second sister. I took you into the imperial palace. If something happened to you, how could I explain it to grandma when I go back?" Xiao Yanru shook her hands and said with tears in her eyes, No. I'm just scared after thinking about what happened to my second sister just now. Something almost happened to my second sister. I took you into the imperial palace. If something happened to you, how could I tell my grandmother when I go back?" Xiao Yanru knelt down with a plop and cried, "Empress Dowager, you don't have to check her anymore. I want to leave. My second sister fell into the water. Although she is fine after checking, I'm afraid that there will be sequelae. Please allow me and my sisters to go home early." Xiao Wanru said in a low voice, "Big sister, second sister just took the imperial physician's pill. You'd better take a rest before leaving, in case something happens to her on the way." Xiao Yanru held the handkerchief in her hand tightly with one hand, and her long fingertips almost pierced into her palm. She just wanted to reach out to scratch Xiao Wanru's jade-like face. Taking a deep breath, she suppressed the hatred in her heart and said, "Second sister, you'd better go back and have a rest first. We can't let her stay here all the time. Moreover, Grandma will be worried about her at home. She hasn't gone back for so long. What should we do?" She wanted to go back to the mansion now, immediately. Waves of coldness came from her limbs and bones, making her tremble and panic from the bottom of her body. "Just stay here and wait for your second sister to recover, in case something really happens and you don't get confused for a while." Chu Luqian made the conclusion with a smile. "In this case, go to the side hall to have a rest before leaving." Empress Dowager, who was most obedient to Chu Luqian, nodded and said at once, "Yes, thank you, Empress Dowager." Xiao Yanru gritted her teeth and did not dare to disobey Empress Dowager. Xiao Yanru and Xiao Wanru left. When they arrived at the side hall, Xiao Jia was lying on the bed weakly. Hearing the sound, she wanted to open her eyes. Suddenly hearing Xiao Wanru's voice, she hurriedly closed her eyes tightly. "Did second sister fall into the water? I seem to see big sister fall into the water just now." Xiao Wanru said with a trace of elegance, which made Xiao Jia panic. "Did Xiao Wanru see it?" "Fifth sister, don't talk nonsense. The two princes can testify that it was second sister who fell into the water." Xiao Yanru was also flustered, but she was not Xiao Jia after all, so she said with a cold face and a deep voice, "Did I see it wrong? It seems that I didn't see it wrong." Xiao Wanru stopped at the door of the hall and said, "Why don't we ask Empress Dowager to send someone to check it out?" After saying that, she turned around and was about to leave. Xiao Yanru was so anxious that she grabbed her and said angrily, "Since something like this has happened to second sister, why do you want to make trouble? What happened to second sister has been a little strange. If you continue to be so persistent, what will the Empress Dowager and the Empress think of our Duke Xing's mansion? Even if you don't consider Duke Xing's mansion, I dare not disregard Duke Xing's mansion. Big sister, are you reprimanding me?" Xiao Wanru looked at Xiao Yanru coldly and said, "I just want to remind you that even if you don't regard our Duke Xing's mansion as your home and insist on making things difficult for Grandma, we are sisters after all. People outside will naturally regard us as one. If we fight with each other, we will just be a joke to others." Xiao Yanru had to suppress the anger in her heart. Xiao Wanru looked up at Xiao Yanru with a trace of coldness flashing in her eyes. This kind of coldness with hostility didn't look like the eyes that a girl in the boudoir should have at all. "Big sister, don't regard everyone as a fool. Everyone is at your mercy. Xiao Jia is silly and doesn't know what will happen to her. In the end, she took the blame for falling into the water and losing her reputation for you. In the end, she may even get a title. But I'm not. I still have my grandma." There was invisible evil in her beautiful watery eyes. She stared at Xiao Yanru and couldn't help turning her neck to avoid her eyes. Xiao Yanru unconsciously said in a weak voice, "How can you say that, fifth sister? We sisters are of one mind, so we are naturally sharp. Even if there are some small misunderstandings, they can be explained clearly. Why do we have to make things like this?" Rui, and great elder princess, was indeed the most taboo in Duke Xing's mansion. "Big sister, it's great that you think so," Xiao Wanru said with a cold snort. Then she walked into the side hall, sat down on the chair in front of the bed, and closed her eyes to rest. Xiao Jia, who was lying on the bed, felt her heart beating wildly and clenched her hands tightly. Now not only her body was trembling, but also her heart was trembling. Could it be that she was really framed by Xiao Yanru? Because of panic and fear, she could only lie quietly on the bed now, thinking about the cause and consequences of this matter and the position she might get. The more she thought about it, the more flustered and scared she became. She had only been thinking about taking over Xiao Yanru's position as Commandery Princess Qing before. Now she suddenly remembered that Xiao Yanru had been wronged by Commandery Princess Qing because of what had happened to her. But how could a daughter of a concubine get the position of Commandery Princess Qing? If it weren't for the position of Commandery Princess Qing, what would she be? Her heart was in a mess. Xiao Yanru pulled herself together and wanted to wake Xiao Jia up, but she saw Xiao Wanru sitting on the chair in front of the table. If she wanted to wake Xiao Jia up, she had to pass by Xiao Wanru. Xiao Wanru's words just now frightened her so much that she didn't dare to go forward for a moment. Gritting her teeth, she could only sit down and wait for Xiao Jia to wake up. She had thought that Xiao Jia who was awake, would wake up immediately, but she didn't expect that Xiao Jia would lie down for a long time. When she finally opened her eyes, it was already an hour later. Since Xiao Jia had woken up, Xiao Yanru couldn't stay any longer. She hurriedly went to say goodbye to the Empress Dowager. There were only the Empress Dowager and Chu Luchen in the main hall. They seemed to get along very well. Hearing that Xiao Yanru was going back, the Empress Dowager didn't make things difficult for them and waved her hand to let them leave the palace. Xiao Caihuan and Xiao Kailing had also come over at this time. The five of them got into the palace sedan again and went to the gate of the palace. After that, they got into the carriage of Duke Xing's mansion. Before leaving the palace, Xiao Xuanzi secretly came over once and said a few words to Yujie before leaving. As the carriage moved forward, Xiao Yanru, who was in the carriage, was burning with anxiety. At this time, she was not in the mood to express her sisterly affection with Xiao Wanru. From time to time, she opened the window and looked out, looking forward to returning to Duke Xing's mansion as soon as possible. Finally, the carriage entered Duke Xing's mansion and stopped. Xiao Yanru rushed out of the carriage without caring about Xiao Wanru and said quickly to the old maid who came to pick her up, "Hurry up, go and ask the doctor of the mansion to come over and ask several doctors with excellent medical skills outside." "Doctors? First miss, who is sick?" The old maid froze for a moment and asked in confusion. "I told you to go and ask them. Don't talk so much nonsense. We have to ask the best doctors." Shuqi came over, kicked the old maid hard, and said angrily. Like Xiao Yanru, she was also so anxious that her hands and feet were flustered and her face was pale. Yes, I'll go right away." The old maid took a step back after being kicked. She did not dare to hesitate anymore, turned around and ran out in a hurry. Xiao Yanru and the old maid hurried to the inner courtyard. Xiao Wanru got out of the carriage slowly, and then looked at the old maid and the old maid, who were extremely anxious. She narrowed her bright watery eyes, which were cold and bloodthirsty. It was not just mixing the medicine with wine to make her delirious and then pushing her into the water. There should be other mysteries in the medicine. Seeing that Xiao Yanru was eager to come back just now, she knew that there was something wrong. In addition to ruining her reputation, the other thing that a woman was most afraid of was hurting her health. Therefore, what she did today was to completely ruin her. The bloody scene in the last life appeared in front of her eyes, and finally turned into hatred and hostility. Chapter 670. Remember in 1 second, 800 male sign small/say net, what? You fell into Xiao Wanru's trap and took the medicine. What? You fell into Xiao Wanru's trap and took the medicine. Madame of Duke Xing suddenly stood up. Because she stood up in a hurry, her body was shaky and she could hardly stand. She could only stand firm with the help of a servant girl's arm. "Mother, what should we do? What should we do? Where did you get the medicine? How effective is it?" Xiao Yanru couldn't stand it anymore at this time and shouted in a low voice. She had always been vicious and never showed mercy to others. Even if she beat someone to death on the spot in front of her, she would not be soft-hearted at all. However, she only did this to others. Now it was her turn. How could she not panic? In addition, it had been a long time, so she felt more and more uncomfortable and felt cold all over her body. This medicine was given by old madam. Wait. I'll go to old madam now and ask her about it. Madame of Duke Xing stood up and walked out. The powder given by old madam asked her to put it in the tea for Xiao Wanru. She only said that the powder not only made people unconscious, but also hindered women. In order to show that she only followed old madam's orders, she agreed no matter what old madam said. Madame of Duke Xing did not ask much. They could only recover when Xiao Wanru was in trouble. No matter what kind of hindrance it was, it had nothing to do with her. She just needed to add fuel to the fire and watch the show. Ru said that she should not interfere if she could. It was the most appropriate to push the matter to old madam. Even if something happened, old madam would take the blame. Xiao Wanru did not dare to say anything because of filial piety, and Duke Xing could not blame her. But she never expected that this matter would fall on her most beloved daughter. At this time, she had to figure out the reason in any case. She took Xiao Yanru to old madam's courtyard. As soon as she entered the room, she rushed to old madam and burst into tears. Nanny Yu asked the others to leave and stood outside the room. Hearing the intermittent crying inside, she frowned tightly. She was old madam's personal old maid and had always been loyal to old madam. Even if Infanta Qinghua and old madam didn't get along well at that time, she still firmly stood by old madam's side. But now, for the first time, she hesitated. Was old madam's behavior really right? Even a vicious tiger would not eat its cubs. Old madam and the fifth miss were related by blood. Old madam was too vicious to plot against the fifth Mississippi. She wanted to ruin the fifth miss's life. If the fifth miss was plotted against now, the fifth miss would have to marry into Commandery Prince Qing's mansion, and it was difficult for her to have children. A woman, without the support of her maiden family and children, was useless even if she was the legal wife. What was more, although Commandery Prince Qing was of no great use, he was of royal blood. The royal family could not watch the bloodline of Commandery Prince Qing be cut off. In the future, they would carry women to the mansion one by one, and the fifth Miss's fate could be imagined. Only people with deep hatred would do this to a woman. But the fifth Miss was not only the granddaughter of Old Madam, but also the savior of Old Madam. Old Madam's action was really disgusting and disgusting. Moving her stiff feet, Nanny Yu lowered her head. Although it was instigated by Madam of Duke Xing and the first Miss, if Old Madam did not have evil thoughts about the fifth Miss, such a thing would not have happened. Old Madam really shouldn't do it. Her idea was so vicious that it made people's hair stand on end. Nanny Yu didn't know how to persuade Old Madam. She couldn't watch Old Madam go down the dark road and fall into an irrecoverable situation. However, she was just an old maid. In the past, Old Madam trusted her, but now Old Madam seemed to be less and less willing to listen to her. After the fifth Miss entered the mansion, Old Madam became irritable and always got angry for no reason. Looking at her own behavior, she would always find some mistakes. What was wrong with Old Madam? Let someone take a good look at you. Don't worry. I will definitely not let anything happen to you. Although the powder is harmful to women, it also depends on their physique. She is young, so it is more likely that something will happen to her. You are a little older and your body function is better, so you should be fine. After hearing the tearful complaints of Madam of Duke Xing and Xiao Yenru, Old Madam's face changed greatly, and she said slowly after a long while. You can leave now. We need to see the doctor in the mansion, and we also need to invite some famous doctors from outside to have a look. Yes, Grandma. Xiao Yenru didn't dare to treat her health as a joke. She wiped away her tears, stood up, and went back with the help of her servant girl. She really couldn't stand it now. She didn't know whether it was because of physical or psychological reasons. She felt cold all over and seemed to be in a trance when looking at people in front of her. She couldn't even walk a few steps back to the courtyard. After a few steps, she had to be supported by two servant girls to go back. Seeing Xiao Yenru leave, Madam of Duke Xing also stood up, looked at Old Madam, and cried in a trembling voice, "Mother, is it harmful to children?" When Xiao Yenru was here just now, she didn't dare to ask, for fear that she would hit her daughter into despair. Old Madam fell silent, and her face turned pale. After a long while, she nodded and said, "It is indeed a little harmful, but it is not a big problem." "How big is it?" Madam of Duke Xing didn't believe Old Madam's words and asked. At this time, she didn't care that the person in front of her was Old Madam, and her expression was a little fierce. Old Madam turned around uneasily and said, "There is at least a 50% possibility that it is harmful to children." Half. Madam of Duke Xing screamed, "Old Madam, how can you be so vicious and use this ferocious medicine?" Her words were very direct, almost facing Old Madam's anger. She, who had always been docile in front of Old Madam, almost couldn't help but want to slap the old face in front of her at this time. Her most beloved daughter, her daughter with a bright future, was about to be ruined in the hands of this old woman. How could she not hate her? However, she didn't think that when she gave the powder to Xiao Wanru before, she was secretly happy, knowing that it would be harmful to Xiao Wanru's future children. She was afraid that the powder would not be effective, so she specially asked Xiao Yenru to add more. Now it fell on her daughter, and she vented all her anger on Old Madam. If she hadn't been a little rational, she almost couldn't help pouncing on Old Madam and beating her old face into a pig's head. "What's your name?" "Vicious. Didn't you know it yourself?" Was careless, so she can't blame anyone. Fortunately, Jie admitted it now, which is a blessing in misfortune. Old Madam had always been decisive in front of her daughter-in-law. It was the first time that she was contradicted by Madam of Duke Xing. At this time, she felt a little embarrassed and scolded with a dark face. "A blessing?" Madam of Duke Xing's face turned livid with anger. It turned out that she was lucky. If a woman lost her children, no matter who she married, the final result would not be good. Even if she got the high position of empress, what was the use of an empress who could not have children? Who would care about it? This old woman actually had the cheek to say that it was a blessing. She clenched her fists under her sleeves and gritted her teeth tightly. After a long while, she said to old Madam gloomily, "Mother, we can't let it go like this." "What do you want?" Old Madam was shocked. Now she only hoped that this matter would pass like this. "I'm going to tear that little bitch." Madam of Duke Xing clenched her fists and turned to leave. Such rude behavior made old Madam so angry that she slapped the table twice. Looking at Madam of Duke Xing's back, she scolded angrily, "How dare you? How dare you? Don't you regard me as an elder?" Nanny Yu came in from the door and comforted her carefully. "Madam is also angry. First Mrs. situation is so bad this time, and I'm afraid that Madam can't bear it. You know that the mansion attaches great importance to First Mississippi. This time First Miss has such an accident, Madam will definitely vent her anger." "So what? You can say that in front of me. How dare you act on your own?" Old Madam said with a sneer. In the past, Madam has dealt with many people in the Fu, and many of them have not been told to you. You are already old, and there are many things that you can turn a blind eye to. Don't tell me you still want to care about the matters of the inner courtyard? Nanny Yu served her a cup of tea and said with a smile, "You are also old, so you should enjoy life. In fact, both the fifth Miss and the first Miss are your children. Only when they are well can the whole Duke Xing's mansion prosper. The fifth Miss's identity is not ordinary. Even if our mansion doesn't treat her well, we can't do anything to her. Moreover, she is the savior of Prince Chen and is favored by the Empress Dowager." Nanny Yu naturally meant to remind old Madam that Xiao Wanru was no longer a little girl who could be manipulated by her. If it were 3 years ago, old Madam could still seize the power to control her on the grounds that she was too young. But now the fifth Miss was already 14 years old. She was neither too old nor too young, but there were some things that she could do on her own. What was more, if she fell into the eyes of the Empress Dowager, if Prince Chen still thanked her for saving his life, the fifth Miss would not be someone that old Madam could deal with at will. Unconsciously, the fifth Miss had grown up. 3 years. In these 3 years, with the temperament of old Madam and Madam, they would definitely torture the fifth Miss well and even make all the arrangements for her in the future. However, the fifth Miss's departure made this plan come to nothing. Thinking of this, Nanny Yu's back suddenly broke out in a layer of cold sweat. Was it really an accident that the fifth Miss left 3 years ago? If not, then who helped her come up with the idea? Was it Rui, a great elder princess, who had always been straightforward? With the temperament of great elder princess, she really didn't seem to be able to come up with such a complicated plan. Then was it fifth Miss herself? At that time, she was only 11 years old. Had she already calculated everything? Thinking of the fifth Miss's expression when she saved old Madam that day, Nanny Yu suddenly felt that it was not impossible. 3 years ago, the fifth Miss was not simple. Now 3 years later, so what happened to the first Miss today was not an accident. Her fingers in her sleeves were cold, and her eyes were filled with shock. If it was really as she guessed, the fifth Miss was really too evil. It seemed that every step she took was extremely accurate. He had stepped on every key point, and he had also stepped on everyone's weakness. Then what happened today? "Old Madam, do you want to send someone to see Madam? Don't really make any unmanageable trouble. The fifth Miss's identity is not ordinary." Nanny Yu shivered and hurriedly looked back at old Madam and said. She was anxious because she thought of some things that she couldn't see through, and Madam of Duke Xing was already like an arrow on the bow, so she had to take action. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.